The story begins with a stern and thoughtful look of a fair-haired young man, dressed in armor, next to whom stands a massive mug of beer. Suddenly, he turns to his interlocutor with a question about the legendary blacksmith, and his hand, driven by emotions, itself reaches out to the interlocutor. Opposite stood a strong, muscular man with a shaved head and graceful tattoos on his body. Next to him stood a mug of foamy drink. His eyebrows rose in surprise when he heard the question. He folded his arms on his chest, turning to the young man with a repeated question about who this legendary blacksmith was. Further, the blonde youth, maintaining a serious and convincing expression on his face, tells about a blacksmith who creates truly legendary and unique objects. In his imagination, images of unique swords, shields, and other weapons arise. And the greed of this master, according to him, has no limits. The interlocutor, with slight irony, asks the young man whether he has ever met at least one non-greedy blacksmith. In response, the young man, slightly irritated, taking his mug of beer, notes that without excellent materials it is impossible to create a good item. And without high-ranking comrades it is difficult to get these materials, however. As far as he knows, the blacksmith does not have such patrons. He continues to ponder the fact that despite its known location, the Eaters Guild was disbanded, while on the other side, surprise slips through, expressed in an unflattering form. What the hell? The thoughts about the mysterious blacksmith continue, and the interlocutor asks the young man with lively interest whether this blacksmith is able to provide himself with everything he needs, to which the young man answers quite ambiguously, "Who knows?" The picture changes, and we see many menacing and frightening creatures. Some of them have horns, others have many eyes like spiders, and the skin of others resembles stone. From their appearance, we can definitely say that these monsters do not have good intentions. In front walks one of these powerful creatures, resembling a dragon with horns, thick fur, and huge glowing red eyes. A powerful column of air pierced the dark sky. The frightened leaves of the trees rustled, creating a whirlwind. Somewhere in the distance, the voice of the interlocutor still sounds, wondering about the existence of the mysterious blacksmith and trying to understand how this is possible. Under the influence of the impulse, the air rushed again, filled with the sounds of fluttering clothes. These are people. They jump straight into the thick of these monsters. Their clothes cannot be called armor. They only hide the mantles, nothing more. The monsters bare their sharp teeth, preparing to tear apart the approaching threat and anticipating the taste of their small bodies. A group of warriors, hanging in the air right in front of the evil jaws of the monsters, were in light clothes and with the most ordinary at first glance weapons. But suddenly, one of them with a quick movement of his hands calls forth a column of fire, incinerating a strong monster, while the rest prepared their weapons for battle. The monsters feel the horror in every fiber of their ugly bodies. It is clear from their appearance that they were not prepared for such resistance, and now they are being destroyed by the weapons of this group. Somewhere, an alarmed and slightly disappointed young man, abruptly breaking away from his comrades, remembering them with unflattering expressions, hastily tries to catch up with them, since they unceremoniously left without him. The man jumped very high, and the bright light of the moon, peeking out from behind the trees, washed his beautiful figure. He looks down appraisingly, his gaze showing superiority and seriousness. The guy jumps right into the thick of the ugly monsters. There is no fear in him. He just arrogantly says that he sees a lot of material in them. A pillar of blue sword light spreads across the entire field. Like lightning, the sword flies through the air and blinds everything around with a strong flash. This sword cuts through everything that gets in its way. Landing impressively on the ground and lifting many heavy rocks into the air around him, the guy confidently declares that he is the best swordsman. No, the guy changed his mind. He is not the best swordsman. At this time, red rays of destructive power burst from his hands. These rays cut through space, sweeping away all creatures in their path. And the guy says that, in fact, he is the best magician. A sharp push in the side takes the guy by surprise, and he has to come out of his own fantasies. The man is not at all impressed by his story, chuckles slightly and questions his words, until the guy almost screams from the unexpected attack. The guy moves on, completely ignoring his interlocutor's doubts, clearly knowing that he is right about something. He walks between the majestically standing swords, choosing which one to take. Finally, choosing a manly heavy sword, he introduces himself to us as a blacksmith with an unusual story, who was simply lucky. The huge monsters surrounded the young man, but he was not afraid, and only asked ironically, "Have you decided to attack me yourself?" He swung his sword with determination, causing a slight glow to appear. The guy said with a solemn grin that he would just test the effectiveness of this sword. A blinding flash strikes the monsters, their flame-distorted faces dissolving in a bright glow, reflecting primal fear. A sharp explosion hits everything, monsters burn, and the ground around them flies apart from its force. Kokoro Island, level 4 of the dungeon, located in a huge volcano crater. 16 in the united ranks of the Sharp Sword, says a man still unknown to us. The guards behind him warn him 5 minutes before the start. He still continues to talk about the 8 top players and 200 elites who are going to fight for him. The light of the fire answered his face, and he understands that even with such a force that can easily capture a small fortress, he is still afraid. The army stands in front of the fire that has flared up in a small depression. The man knows that this is the one that appears once every 2 weeks, Hellish Gao. The Wanderer warns about 4 minutes before the start. The man is focused, the army has really become stronger, but the army began to shout, "Trespasser! Trespasser!" The man was in great confusion, looking around for the problem that had appeared. In the depths of the cave stood a man hidden by a cloak. The entire army turned around, looking at him. Just a figure in a cloak, nothing more, and seemingly no protection or danger. The man is very confused, he is clearly angry about this situation. He does not know who this is at all. The entire army, already expecting the appearance of another guest, looks at the figure that has appeared. The face lights up, and we see a boy we already know, a magician, while the man doesn't even know who this weakling is. He is alone, facing a whole army, heavily armed, waiting for battle. The man looks at this fearless young man. He does not see any sword or armor. He is very surprised by this. The young man never changed his position. The man does not understand how he was able to get through the defensive system. Is he a well-trained killer, he thinks, imagining what to do now? The man convinces himself that this is not a murderer. People like that don't give themselves away so easily. Then a sign grid appears in the air. 2 signs popped up again. Searching for grid user. User not found. The man is surprised to realize that it is not a player. After exchanging glances with the army, who were no less surprised, he came to absolutely no conclusions. The man decided to remember in the dialogue, said that this is the territory of the Silver Knights Guild. He thought to himself that the guards at the entrance had completely relaxed since they let him in. He continued to tell the young man that there would be a battle here, and if he wanted to stay alive, then he should leave. The young man quietly wondered why his invisible self had disappeared. Perhaps it was because Helgao had noticed him. He takes off his long coat in one movement, because he clearly doesn't need it anymore. The entire army stared at the guy in shock, not believing what they saw. The man was also still looking at the guy in shock, while right behind him, the fire raged, rising. The young man found himself dressed in elite armor that elegantly hugged his body. It looked like dragon scales, with spikes running right down the spine. He had a long, spiked tail, and his armor reflected the red light coming from the crystals in his armor. The army was in shock. Everyone was whispering and didn't understand what kind of armor it was. What was wrong with this man? Irritation appeared on the man's face. He started yelling at the entire army to stop staring and get this man out of here. Suddenly, anger turned to horror on their faces, and fire flared up behind them. Turning around, they realized that he was already here. The fire turns into a shape, highlighting the huge figure of a terrible monster. From the raging flames emerged a figure of a weapon, more like an ancient Viking halberd. Then a huge head with long, curved horns began to appear. The face resembled a skull. It did not look like an ordinary person at all. All the guards, including the man, the commander-in-chief, completely unexpectedly, were very frightened by his appearance. Gao was 30 times larger than humans, a huge demon with a strong body and terrifying fire under his control. Master of Hellfire, Helgao, has arrived, was heard by everyone there. Helgao's roar sowed fear and chaos, and the fire reduced heat resistance by 50%. Everyone looked at him in horror, frantically thinking what to do, not even being able to say it out loud. Helgao used pillars of flame, making a warning movement with his weapon, sprinkling everything with fire. The army began to be blown away and burned, but they stood, thanks to their fire-resistant armor. However, this did not help, and more than 50 people screamed from surprise and the fire falling on them. Some were blown off their feet, while others simply froze in horror. Doom was reflected in everyone's eyes. Turning around, the commander-in-chief saw that half of the guild had been killed by flames alone. He began to worry because despite the fact that his heat resistance had increased to 86%, he could still only leave here with serious injuries. Despair showed on his face. He realized that he had all lost to this hellish Gao again. The young magician, with a completely casual expression, heads towards his goal. In full high-class uniform, he stands in front of a huge wall. The commander-in-chief looks at him in complete bewilderment as this flame wiped out half of his army. But this boy didn't care. The elegant armor looked great on this boy's body, showing its highest level. With an ordinary look, the guy raises his hand, creating a small ball of glow. The man was surprised by this action from the guy. An ordinary pickaxe appeared from the glowing ball, and the boy was clearly confident in his actions. The man looked at the magician in despair, completely perplexed. Why would the boy need a pickaxe in such a situation? Is this guy kidding me? The man thinks. He clearly expected a different plot of events. While the magician was diligently breaking the stone wall, the gaze of Helgao fell on him, which clearly did not bode well. The boy felt very hot. He seemed not to notice what was happening and only got angry that it was getting harder and harder each time. The guy continues his work because the necessary ore that he mines appears only when the main boss arrives, but Gao is already going to give this smart guy a good slap with flames. The flames are already flying towards the back of the young man, who still doesn't pay attention. The fire spread throughout the entire cave, even hitting the commander-in-chief, who had been monitoring the situation until now. The flames hit the young man directly, the man noticed, looking in fear at what had happened to the boy. After all, no one could resist the power of the fire that the hellish Gao directed at him. But when the smoke from the flame cleared, the boy stood calmly, completely unharmed, just as casually in his place. The magician turns around abruptly and asks the commander-in-chief to do something about this boss because he was too hot, which causes complete shock in the man. The man realizes that the problem is clearly not Gao, so he asks the boy how he even survived, to which he turns around in bewilderment, clearly not understanding why he had to suddenly die. Hellish Gao, seeing that his victim was still standing, he looked at him with his empty, burning flame gaze, knowing without a second thought what he was going to do again. Gao takes a swing and sprinkles the boy with flame again, while the boy, in his turn, with a light voice, answers the man that there is absolutely nothing complicated about it. The flames once again engulf the boy's body, enveloping every inch of his armor, but doing nothing to change the expression on his grin. Gao peers into the flames, hoping that the boy has already burned, because no one has ever fought him off so steadfastly. The commander-in-chief, peering through the fire and ashes, sees an untouched figure, which leaves him in complete shock. The boy, having withstood such a blow from the hellish Gao, smiles calmly. As if he expected such a blow, he was sure that he would easily cope with it. The flame was still burning next to him. He was in perfect condition. Turning with a grin towards the commander-in-chief, he says that, simply put, this is the effect of the item. Loud running footsteps echo dully and bounce off the stone walls. The sounds of pursuit grow louder and louder. A stream of blue light hits his face. The boy turns around and sees two well-armed swordsmen flying after him. Bitter thoughts overwhelmed him. He devoted several months to this. He indulged them as best he could. He continues to run, trying to avoid pursuit. He's angry. He doesn't understand what this is. What the hell, they're following him at all. One of the swordsmen swung his sword with a loud whistle and wounded the boy in the back. He screamed from the sharp and unexpected pain. The scream was very loud. Doomed thoughts began to roll in more and more. He will die here. He turns around to see the whole situation. A tall, long-haired old man appeared out of nowhere and said that the guy was a fool. He had abused their trust. He had not been able to control his greed and desire for profit. The guy recognized the old man. He called him Asher. He was a tall, middle-aged man. He was dressed in beautiful clothes, and the old man looked at the guy. Ashura's expression was filled with great disappointment. His voice was rough. Looking at the boy with his cold gaze, he said that he did not have much hope that Grid, as he called him, would cope with the mission. Grid bit his lip. He was no less disappointed with the situation. He was in despair and hatred of what was happening. He replied that he had fought for months in vain. He deserved a reward. The boy sat on his knees, holding his sword tightly in his hand, clearly making it clear that he would not give up without a fight. Asher replied that, of course, he would not leave him without a reward. Asher frowned, his expression even more severe than before. His cold, rough voice said that to the one who so carelessly trampled on his good attitude towards him, a silent pause appeared in the air. One of the swordsmen appeared behind the guy. He swung. His eyes, under the black, sharp mask of a bird, burned with a red fire. "Death," Asher finished. A cold, doomed shiver ran through the guy's body. Grid turns around, the last thoughts flashing through his head that everything will end like this. He risked his life for several months for nothing for this. Horror is reflected on his face. His eyes are wide open and his teeth are clenched. Cold sweat breaks out on his forehead. He can't die like this. The last thought flashed through his head. Damn it. Best VR game worldwide, Satisfy. Over 2 billion unique players worldwide. When playing it, people sit in chairs with huge helmets built right into the chairs, allowing them to fully immerse their creation in the game. This is an entire gaming universe, filled with satellites, planets, and everything that an ordinary person could wish for. This fantasy world is so wide in its diverse content that it is even called another world. In this world, the number of unexplored lands exceeds the number of explored ones, deserts, seas, other universes. Everything was in this game. The northern cave of the end was one of these unexplored places, the deepest place in the entire cave. A location full of all kinds of equipment and items, located in complete peace. An hour before this, the already familiar to us Grid, a level 73 warrior, was incredibly happy and, like a small child, cried out, "I found her!" An S-rank quest item of Count Asher. It was a strange book. On its cover was a picture of a cup with flames and lightning around it, a book of a legendary blacksmith. The boy immediately grabbed the find, complaining along the way that the search for it took too much time. Anyone else would have given up by now. Grid continued his angry monologue, worried about the money he spent on elixirs and equipment alone, because he couldn't stop even halfway through this quest. The image of Asher, whom we knew, popped into the boy's head. He thought that if he didn't receive a worthy reward, he would definitely never get involved with him again. The guy holds out the book and a sign appears in space, with the inscription that the object is unknown. And for identification, the Eye of Palladian is required. The guy is clearly stunned by this plot. He remembers what the Eye of Palladian is, and his memories clearly bring him into a certain horror. It was a very expensive item. 500,000 won. It looked like a ball, with handles like a scroll. And in the ball there was a red eye, the icon was narrow, and the eye looked straight into the soul. The guy sat down in despair, covering his head with his hands. He was worried that the item had become so expensive. How much more money should he spend? He had already taken several credits for this game. His face suddenly takes on the look of someone who has just had the most brilliant idea of his life, and he literally screams that he can always get more. Next month, of course. The glow from the book illuminated his face. A sign appeared on top saying, "Indicator in use," and a wind appeared out of nowhere. The guy was surprised. The book began to heat up with electric discharges. Grid's hair began to rise from the tension. The dust around him began to fly away, and lightning began to strike from the book. The tablet flashed again with the inscription, "Book of Pagma." Tablets appeared one after another. In the book are the secrets of Pagma, the great blacksmith, surpassing human boundaries. When used, you become Pagma's receiver. Grid began to be completely enveloped in lightning. His rating became legendary, and his continental reputation increased by 500. He stared blankly at the book, realizing what had just happened. A sudden flash of insight, and the guy is already screaming with delight, trying to close his mouth. "A legendary item," he shouted. Who would have thought that he would get a legendary and natural item to use? With it, he can get one of the strongest classes available. Well, no, he's here to get an S rank, and it would be very unwise to abandon the quest. Grid sighs in disappointment. But he gets excited again because it's a legendary item. It can be sold, and he can easily get hundreds of millions of won. With student debt and gaming fees, he was forced to do hard labor, his mind conjuring up images of the construction site he worked on, gaming being the only thing he was good at. But since he had dedicated himself to the game, even his friends had turned away from him, and he would immediately remember all their angry and disappointed faces, and his family began to treat him like a void. He remembered the face of his mother, father, and they were all unhappy. But now, having this object, he can finally pay off all his debts. He turns to his homeland, as if they hear him, that now he has finally struck gold. He hugs the book tightly. He raises the book up and shouts, "Sell it quickly! Exit!" But suddenly a sign pops up for him. "You cannot leave the game at the moment." Grid was shocked. The sign again informs that the quest, Count Asher's Secret Request, has been changed to Count Asher's Wrath. A 100-strong army led by Asher immediately appeared, engulfed in a purple glow. Asher loudly reproaches the guy that he, a lousy bastard, came here blinded by greed. The sign appears and says that now Count Asher will try to kill the guy. Having learned his selfish intentions, the guy was very surprised. Asher screams again, his voice like loud thunderclaps. He knows that the boy has decided to betray them despite the agreement. Grid yells back, pretending to be innocent, that this is nonsense. Asher, in his opinion, doesn't even know how difficult it was to get into the cave while saving face. Asher clearly didn't do it. Asher frowned, fixing his blue gaze on the guy, ordering him to take him. and continued the dialogue with him, saying that he could come up with as many excuses as he wanted. We return to what we've already seen, the swordsman behind him. Horror on his face and thoughts about how many months he suffered for this. Teeth are clenched. The brain is frantically coming up with an escape plan, and thoughts are filled with one thing. I can't just die like that. The swordsman lowers his sword with a sweeping motion, but it only hits the ground. The guy dodges. His gaze shows anger and determination. He promises himself that no matter what, he will replay this quest. He is a level 73 player. After all, he definitely has skills. The swordsman flies at the guy again, but he calmly reflects it with a shield of blue energy that appeared out of nowhere. The guy was surprised that he had a guardian shield. But this did not stop the swordsman. He reflected the shield with energy and went to finish his job. Grid was clearly shocked that the shield had no effect. He had clearly expected a different outcome. With one blow, the swordsman sends the boy flying a few meters away from him. Even though the boy tried to block the blow, he still lost half his HP. Grid, aware of Asher's level 300, but unaware of his retinue's equally high level, realized that he had started the battle in vain at this quest, feeling hundreds of blades aimed at him. The guy realized that he was doomed. He knew that this would happen, and he understood that his luck was definitely not enough. He noticed a book in his bag. He started to worry. What if he died now? What would happen to the book? Would it just disappear? He can't replay this quest. And he can't win. He won't even get gold for this item if it just disappears from the inventory. There's only one thing left he can do. He drops his weapon and reaches straight for the book. Just one thing. Asher perked up, having shrewdly grasped the young man's intention. He shouts to his guards to stop the guy because he is trying to open the book. Grid resolutely does what he started. Again, feeling the shock from the book, he screams that it is too late. Asher clearly should have been more attentive. A flash of light struck the boy's body, and the sign with the inscription, "The change is about to begin," appeared again. The young man's naked body rose slightly upwards. All skills and stats were reset. Let's see, maybe I'll be able to replay this quest after receiving the legendary class, he thought. Many skills and characteristics began to open up one after another. Now the guy is not just a warrior, he has become the successor of Pagma. The young man wondered if he was part of the working class now, even here. However, he still felt strong enough. Perhaps these changes were due to class effects. Asher was overcome with despair as he watched the boy gain strength while Grid enjoyed his suffering. The young man was already making plans for the future, thinking about how he would defeat the swordsman, enjoy the power, and complete the quest. A message appears in the air saying, "Change is complete," causing Grid to grin and say, "Done," confidently. Now a legend. The young man began to threaten with incredible confidence, not noticing that he was wearing shorts and that his level was only 1. Taking up the sword, he felt ready for battle, although perhaps only he himself thought so. And, as it was easy to guess, death awaits him. The sophisticated country house is located on a separate plot, surrounded by neatly planted fir trees. The windows glow with bright light. A beautiful female voice on the other end of the line dictates that according to the task force's report, the class change occurred 5 minutes ago. A mature man announces his imminent arrival, and a telephone voice replies that he will begin preparing a briefing immediately. The man looks like a typical office worker, mentally thinking about the words that the woman just said. The man grins, interested in the words and realizing that this is going to be a lot of fun. Grid lies there, drained of strength, hoarse from exhaustion, his voice asking Asher if he would really kill for researching the subject. Why the hell did he even chase after him? The guy lies surrounded by a blue glow. His level has dropped to -1. Asher watches what is happening, and the guy continues to mutter that the item is rightfully his. His body blurs into space. The blue light absorbs him. Grid gives his final instructions for everyone to eat well and live in peace. So, we see a typical multi-story city building, in which, apparently, our main character lives. In a small, cluttered room, there is that same gaming chair, its roof rises, and the boy who was dying earlier was sitting right there. He looked exhausted, sighing as he went along. The dark circles under his eyes indicated that this was clearly not his first day playing like this, and he said sarcastically in short words that it was undoubtedly very exciting. He was again immersed in thoughts about the money he could earn, completely oblivious to the heavy figure of his mother, looking at him as if he were prey. In a hissing voice, she asked if he had seen what time it was, adding through her teeth, "Son." An office building with 1,000 windows resembling a skyscraper stands in the middle of the town. This is the operational headquarters of Satisfy SA Group. An expensive car pulls up to the headquarters and is met by a petite, cute girl. She greets her boss. This girl is the head of the Satisfy Task Force, Choi Nahi. When the car door opened, the same man came out. He asked Choi Nahi about what he had heard from her on the phone earlier. He could not even imagine that something like this could happen, and he was overcome with curiosity. This man is the lead developer of the Satisfy group, Im Cholho. He, immediately getting down to business, decided to clarify whether they had prepared a field report. The girl started to tell us about an ordinary unemployed guy we knew, his ID, grid, and he was level 73, now -1. His real name is Shin Yeonwoo. With the help of Asura's secret request, he received the Book of Pagma. Im Cholho sat at the table. In front of him was a holographic screen. Behind him stood a girl who continued to tell the story of a young man who lived for more than a year in one city and spent 3 months exploring endless lands with level 200 monsters, dying many times. Although the main developer once told them to investigate the legendary class, all the research teams came to the conclusion that it was a coincidence based on the recklessness of the teenagers' play. As Choi Nahi kindly reported, the man was less hostile to this. In his opinion, such actions cannot be called a coincidence. It is the persistence that the young man showed. A photo of that same grid appeared on the screen. The girl, looking at him, wonders if this could have happened by accident. As the leader of the team, she is very disappointed. The man pulled the girl up. He reproached her for choosing the wrong words. In his opinion, this could not have happened by accident. Nahi looked at the developer in surprise. The developer began his explanation that, according to the calculations of the supercomputer Morpheus, the northern cave of the end and Pagma's receiver should be opened only in 2 years. But this guy not only found the northern end cave, he did the accompanying quest and found the item. He approached the woman. Does she really think it was an accident? The man pointed his finger at the photo of the young man. He was confused by another thing. The guy had a negative level. The developer continued the story that initially this quest was supposed to open only at level 350 or higher, but Grid bypassed it and used the item very quickly, and since he underwent immediate class changes, the standard legend penalty was applied. Instantly reset the level to the first. Since he failed 2 parallel quests at once, he lost 2 levels. Usually players below 10th do not lose levels like that, but Grid's level was set at -1. Naha's gaze widened in surprise. She began to understand what the developer was getting at. This meant, "Now do you understand?" the man says, explaining that the average player gets 10 points to a stat per level, and when Grid is at -level 1, he will need 2 more levels to reach his first starting level, meaning he will receive 20 additional points to his stat, which is 20 points more than any other player. The man gestures to the greatness of his idea. He denies that it is an accident, that it is a special situation, that it is a skill. The cute red-haired girl continues to look surprised, but her eyes show intense mental activity. She understands that the game is out of balance and they absolutely have to fix it, which she reports. But the developer interrupts her, saying that there is no point in going that far. The man stood up and pointed out to the woman what she had said. There is no point in worrying about such ineffective players. Besides, Pagma's successor is a weak class in combat. The developer frowned. A heavy thought came to him as if he remembered something. The girl, noticing this, immediately asked what had happened, but the man refused and only said that he would leave for the day. In the military power management building, the same thing can be heard several times. Mr. Shin Yeonwoo. A heavy hand falls on the boy's shoulder. As if waking him from sleep, this man is addressing him specifically. It was the old man who pointed out that this was not the first time the boy had been called. He should collect the money for the morning's work, while the irritated man in uniform at the table, as if hinting, suggested that everyone hurry up and go home. Yeonwoo jumps up, apologizing profusely and does what he was asked to do. The old man and the grandpa step aside, discussing the guy's terrible appearance and the fact that he stinks. They are clearly embarrassed by the fact that he is a gambling addict. He hears their voices through which mockery and vain judgments penetrate. They say that fate should lead a man to success but not him, and even regret that such a young soul was destined to become a failure. He sits thoughtfully, surrounded by stone buildings, his head hanging down in exhaustion. He looks at the crumpled green bills. It's enough for another round of the game, but it doesn't bring the same excitement as before. Realizing that the only thing he can think about is the game, a wave of disgust and guilt overwhelms him. But only because he couldn't get that treasured book for several hundred million won, because it could have changed his life. He spent an incredible amount of time in this city, but for what? To end up at -level 1? Cars rush past the guy one after another, but in this rush there is one treasured one, which we met earlier. An elite class machine from the developer Satisfy. Im Cholho was riding in serious thought. His attentiveness had clearly left him. His whole head was filled with only that special player. Despite the driver's distraction, the car fits into every turn quite successfully and stays level on the road. Smiling smugly, Cholho talks about the player's advantage, which is that no one considers him special, but the guy will have to prove the opposite himself. Meanwhile, Yanwoo was completely desperate, covering his head with his hands from endless bad thoughts. He can't be that bad. He needs to try himself in at least something else. Unable to bear these thoughts, the boy cried out, "Is there really nothing I'm good at?" He clenched his fists hard, hitting his knees hard, his voice filled with deep despair. The anger subsided. He unclenched his fists, where the already killed banknotes became even more rebellious than they were. With a heaviness in his soul, he exhaled. As if grasping at his only hope, the boy grinned, clearly ordering himself to play again. At that time, the developer noted to himself that the guy clearly had no sense of proportion, and that was his main advantage. We return again to Yanwoo's tall multi-story building. As usual for himself, the young man sits in his gaming chair, trying to justify his thoughtlessness with interest, because he has never played for the legendary class, and this is definitely his last game. As long as the capsule, as they call their gaming chair, remains in order, everything should go well, as if he had broken a friend's, as a sign of hope for her. Determination is the word that can describe him now. He is obliged to win back his money at any cost. A huge ball with 1,000 universes began to shine, from which many lands, still unknown to many players, flew out. A typical game loading screen appeared and a blue sign connecting to Satisfy came out with the usual sound. The sky is gray and rainy, just a little bit more, and it will definitely start raining. A dry old tree at the end of its life tries to stretch its tops towards him, hoping that heaven will allow it to live a little longer. A blue glow engulfed the gap in space. The portal began to increase in size, right in the circle of those very trees. The glow began to round out and take on shapes, and after a few moments the young man was standing on dry ground. Judging by the way the young man was turning his head from side to side, this place was completely unfamiliar to him. He thought that he had been driven out of the city. It's still Patreon, but the guy has never been here before. He just doesn't understand why they can't give him a break, why they banish him for a minor betrayal. With only a pair of shorts on him, the boy looked around and searched for anything he might need, especially a sign to at least know where he was. But then his gaze caught something that surprised the guy. Notes of hope crept into his mind. Something more like a termite mound stood in front of him. Among the monotonous desert and dry trees, it stood out the most. A brutal man, with his palms outstretched, surrounded by purple light, spoke roughly and in some unknown language. The radiance was pouring straight into the girl's young body. A crucifix on a stone cross, around which stood 4 men in long robes. She looked so doomed and exhausted. The stone statue behind burst into flames, the flames spreading right along with the rhythm of the spell. The statue resembled an animal, perhaps a dog, or maybe a dragon. Words of surprise spread across the clay walls. Our curious hero, of course, came in here, and what he saw clearly did not fit into his usual picture of this world. Another achievement that appeared above the player informed that in these parts this place is usually called Yatana Temple. Temples are only for players above level 150. It was clearly very dangerous for our hero with -1 level to be there. He understood this, so fear did not take long to appear. To make sure of his worthlessness, the guy decided to look at his characteristics, and of course, they were not at all comforting. His level was -1. Class: Successor of Pagma. Title: The One Who Became a Legend. Health and mana were full. Intelligence, agility, self-control, tenacity, nobility, insight were at the lowest rating. 1. Attribute points. 0. Weight, 3 and a bit out of 20. The card warned that the weight had been exceeded by 200%, so now the speed was reduced by 100%. And now Yanwoo was limited in using skills, so the risk of entering a weakened state had greatly increased. Seeing his weak characteristics, he realized that now he is no stronger than a small beetle. Apparently this is not a bug in the system. He is really at -1 level. However, there were also advantages. It was now much easier to get reputation points and make an impression. And as for items, he could now further improve them and use them. An action plan immediately appeared in the guy's head. He could already feel how green papers appeared in his hands because now, with such characteristics, it became easier for him to earn money. Iron armor immediately appeared on the guy's body as soon as he said one word. Equip. The player received Maymon's two-handed sword and Mengel's armor. It was a delight. Before the guy could only put on this armor at level 60, he needed 200 strength points for this. His new capabilities amazed him more and more. But apparently nothing comes for free, and immediately red signs informed the player that penalties had been applied to him for imbalance of characteristics. Additional effects had been reduced by 50%, attack power by 30, and defense by 20. But even with the penalties, the sword gave 200 attack points and 130 defense, which is many times better than level 1 items, which don't even come close to reaching that level. The guy seemed to be filled with this energy of blessing. He thanked every god he could remember. After all, the legendary classes are excellent to allow such high-class equipment. A minute of dubious thoughts completely destroyed all the delight. The silence in his head puzzled the guy, directing him to reasoning. If it's a level 150 dungeon, then everyone else in it is the same level? The game is trying to kiss him and kill him at the same time? A loud scream echoed through the walls. It was the girl over whom 4 sorcerers were leaning. It was completely unclear whether it was a cry of pain or fear. Since he is in the temple of Yatona, those 4 must be monks of Yatona. Apparently they learned to cast spells on this girl. One small scratch from them will kill our hero. Staying here for him is the same as dying. Just when the guy thought that he would simply hide from them, a heavy figure in a cloak appeared behind him, an atmosphere of impending horror emanating directly from him. A hand fell on his armor. A stretch and a familiar "you" flew from the monk's lips. The guy was completely taken aback. He still didn't know whether to hit him or run away. Apparently, the first option was more familiar to him. The sword cut through the air with a quick movement, causing the man to scream and step back. In a hurt tone, he urged the boy to calm down and asked if he really tried to kill him. Yanwu was surprised by the lack of a hostile reaction and lowered his sword. The man took off his hood. The light illuminated his face. It was very masculine. The sideburns merged with the beard. The hair was of medium length. It was a secret guard under the command of Count Steam. Doran. He noticed how the guy was hiding and realized that he was not one of the monks. The termite mountain was covered with dense catarrhs all over its surface. It stood out very much among the dry and some flowering trees. Yanwu realized that the young girl, the crucifix on the altar, was Count Steim's daughter, Irene. Doran confirmed the guy's reasoning, adding that she was kidnapped during a trip. Doran noted that despite the current situation, it was nice to have someone on your side. The guy looked at him completely uncomprehendingly and noticed another sign. She reported that now the guy signed up for the S-Class quest, saving the Count's daughter. Within an hour, he must save her and receive 3,000 gold. Doran was an ordinary NPC. Doran spoke to the guy respectfully, saying that fear blinds ordinary people. But Yanwu seemed brave to him, while Yanwu himself thought that this place had never been explored by players before. Wondering how such a weakling, how could he end up here, and how could he endure all this? He turned to the game, thinking that maybe it was because of an innate ability. But it was a self-control class ability. Points cannot be allocated to this ability. The probability of falling into an abnormal state was radically reduced. The recovery speed increased. All the gods must be on Count Stein's side, Doran rejoiced. The player, as our hero, will help him. He sincerely thanks Yona for helping in such difficult times. Yanwu was surprised by this and said in a straightforward tone that he was not going to help Doran in his mission. An awkward pause hung over them as they looked straight into each other's eyes, both caught. Doran tried again to awaken the warrior spirit in the boy by telling him to carry out this mission with him. But the boy was adamant and cut him off with a dry phrase, "I'm not going to," which made the whole situation even more awkward. Doran was very stunned by such an answer. Holding out his hand, he stutteredly asked the guy if he would really leave him alone to fight these black magicians. But the guy only said that it was not his problem. Although it was very painful for the guy to lose 3,000 gold, which in yen is about 3,600,000, he ended up here because of another S level. It would be stupid to do that. Doran was convinced that the guy was the one who could resist the dark energy. He himself would not be able to cope with it. He just begs the guy to help. Yonu is not a ceremony with Doran at all. No excuses, just the dry truth, because in fact he is fine because of luck. Now he is at minus level 1, and if he fails this quest, then he will be at minus level 3. They did not stop arguing. Doran begged for help, but the guy clearly refused him, going deeper into the hall, trying to find a way out. Suddenly, a huge boulder, touched by one of the men, flew down with a loud bang. Both of them, caught up in the same thought, looked down at the stone. An expression of incomprehension reflected on their faces. The stone hit something soft, and to our guy's unfortunate surprise, it was one of the monks who had already noticed the attackers. Now the quest saving the Count's daughter was definitely activated. The guy was definitely not delighted with this news. He was clearly pissed off by this whole situation. Doran had been waiting for this moment, for which he had been preparing his signature phrase, "Now we're in the same boat." According to him, Yanwu was now also an enemy of the temple, but the guy still stubbornly resisted going on this quest. Then the man explained that now they would not be allowed to leave. The monks of the Yatan temple are fanatics who engage in sacrifice. They have a broken group, and they killed one of them. Taking out his knives, he gives his heroic speech, that this is fate and there is no point in complaining, so this fact should be accepted with dignity. He will dissolve the path for Grid and leave him, to save the girl. One of the monks shouted that these two men were blasphemers. They were harming the children of Yatan. At that very moment, a whole crowd of monks, armed from top to bottom, headed towards them. While Doran was taking the hero's position, the guy's head was filled with thoughts like, "Run, run, run!" There were too many of them. Yan simply couldn't stand up to such an army. At least that's what he thought. The monks shouted loudly, baring their teeth. Their eyes were hidden by red glasses, but if they weren't there, hatred would have been visible in them. What can I say? The guy was just scared. He clearly didn't feel anything else at the moment, but, as they say, the brain thinks better in stressful situations. Once again, he cries that he will die quickly, sitting down and covering his head with his hands. But at this time, the monk flies out from above, clearly not of his own free will. The guy looks at the trajectory of his fall and looks at the collapsed body in surprise, noticing a knife sticking out of it. Two more monks rush at Doran, raising their swords over him. In their opinion, he is the Antichrist, deserving of inevitable death. But the mercenary is not an ordinary one. It's not for nothing that he called himself that. He calmly dodges every attack of the monks, which they did not expect at all. Doran finds the monk's weak spot with his sharp gaze and runs right under him. By spreading his knives between his fingers, he catches the target. He must not make a mistake. That is his job. Two knives fly out of the palms right at the monk's head. From the strong blow, they fly several meters away from Doran, who is already looking for the next target. 5 knives, 5 hit targets, and again, one after another, the monks fall to the ground like heavy sacks, lifeless bodies blocking the empty road. The guy just watched. He was surprised by the mercenary's strength. He was very good at moving in such a narrow space. There was a chance that he would be lucky and the boy would survive with him. More shouts and orders to kill were heard from behind. A group of monks ran out. On the other side, the guy saw this and humbly realized that he might not be lucky. Doran turned to Yona. In his opinion, if they continue to fight like this, it will lead them nowhere. Doran was clearly hinting at more targeted actions. Doran, allegedly referring to the guy's desire to finish everything as soon as possible and not waste time on these small fish, pushed the guy, who was completely lost in bewilderment from what was happening. The push sent the guy flying down into the very depths of the termite mound. While they were shouting that he would simply die here, he wouldn't succeed, the mercenary jumped after him, not paying any attention to the monks. This man is clearly not as simple as he seems, because even this time he saves the guy. A light appears from his palms. He cast a levitation spell and paused slightly in the air. The guy almost kissed the ground with his face, but the spell saved him. There were only a couple of centimeters between him and the ground. He breathed a sigh of relief. Doran mocks the guy because he was surprised by such an easy spell. Apparently, he is very modest. But the guy rolls his eyes a lot significantly. This mercenary definitely has problems with communication. But even so, the guy is alive only thanks to him, which makes him smile, enjoying his living body while Doran is waiting for the guy to show himself, calling it the power that Yanwu hid. The mission to rescue the young lady began, and about 24 monks guarded the altar where she was located. "Kill all heretics" was heard everywhere in one voice. Everyone, as one, stood screaming, hands raised, violet flame burning in them. They call their actions the fulfillment of desires cheaper than the underworld. They are involved in dark magic, and if these two do nothing, it will be very difficult to leave there alive. Doran clearly thinks faster than the guy because he, not allowing the monks to complete the spell, launched knives at them like darts. There is no longer any doubt about the mercenaries' accuracy. They hit the target right on the head. The monks repeat the fate of those monks who got in the way of this Apollo before. The smartest of all the monks decided to say the most obvious thing. Doran was aiming at the spellcasters. The rest of the children of Yatan must kill him at any cost. But the man is not at all embarrassed by the crowd of running and constantly screaming monks. He takes his usual stance, taking out his knives. The guy finally notices how strong his partner is. He copes with these poor guys despite the fact that they are level 150. As expected, the guy thought that he didn't need to do anything and now he could finish the quest just quietly thanks to the NPC. He just had to support him. And no, the guy didn't run off to fight, as you might think. He just decided to shout motivational slogans at Doran, which of course distracted him. The figures surrounded the man, saying some kind of spell, the essence of which is that the man will become a doll with an empty soul. Flashes, screams, a strong wind, all this accompanied him. And Doran missed him. He didn't notice how the monks began to surround and read the spell. It caught him completely by surprise. The spell consumed him. His pupils rolled up. His body became weak. The one who was brave and strong a couple of minutes ago was already screaming from pain and devastation. The guy immediately took his words back. If you think about it, he had dreamed of becoming Yatan's servant all his life, like no one else. Overjoyed by such a victory, the monks cried out in delight, "This is what will happen to those who stand in their way. And, as is the classic, they will not leave our hero without attention." "I am Steinman's shadow, Doran," the man's angry voice echoes, purple lights interspersed with bright yellow ones. "He is a sword of darkness, and he will carry out his service to the end." His eyes lit up. Life was returning to the man. With one swing of his fist, he broke through the wall of black magic. This man is definitely cool. That's what the guy thought. He realized that this ordinary NPC is a hero, a strong and important character inside the game. The monks did not calm down. They completely lacked the instinct of self-preservation. They read another spell, trying to somehow influence Doran. He raised his knives like lightning. Rage was reflected on his face. Before us again is a mercenary full of strength who is ready to give his life for the Stein family. And those who try to attack this family in any way will never be given a second chance. 50 knives charged with electricity are sent straight to the monks. The monks are in a completely hopeless situation. Their chances of survival are decreasing exponentially as the knives get closer and closer. There's a loud crack, knives are falling, an energy shield has appeared right in front of the monks. But from their faces, you can tell for sure that they have nothing to do with it. The guy and the mercenary were also no less surprised. How did these small monks, who were not even able to defend themselves, manage to make a shield of such power? They are just lucky. Having solved one problem, another one immediately falls on them. Silence hangs over them, and their eyes try to find the approaching threat. The bold sound of heels bounced off the walls. A confident female voice was heard. They couldn't go any further. Her S-level quest was to protect this ritual. She was beautiful, a wonderful figure. A purple tight dress emphasized her wonderfully. Her long hair fell on her shoulders. Seeing Doran, she was amazed. She definitely liked that he was her opponent. The blue gaze was directed straight at the mercenary. The girl gently asked if he would allow her to fight him. Smiling softly, he introduced himself. Her name was Yura. This girl looked very strong, which cannot be said about our hero. Just a pathetic player with -1 level. Jan should definitely do this quest to become someone in this game. It will simply save his situation, adding a monthly living wage, the title of Viscount, cleanup, the circle of aristocracy. He will get a high status in a shortcut. This girl is simply a worldwide sensation. She appears very often on TV screens, and it is justified. Yura is a bloody witch, first place in the rating of black magic, and 5th place in the global one. Her bright blue gaze turned into the red rays of her weapon. She is very interested in fighting Doran himself, not killing Steinman's servant. But it is completely unclear what she is doing here, because being the master among all black magicians, Yura has single-handedly surpassed the standard characteristics of her class, thanks to her unrivaled ability to control magic. This girl is very strong. From her blow, both Doran and Yeonu flew to the side. The girl noticed the boy too. She turned to the boy to find out if he was the one who took this quest. This place became the perfect place for her to test her new skill in secret from everyone else, and all thanks to our hero. The guy's outfit left much to be desired, and the girl couldn't help but latch onto it so as not to humiliate the guy. This made the guy go into his thoughts. The level is really wrong and the leaders of the rating are on another level, but they are still here. Smiling self-confidently, the guy, as if seizing the last opportunity, pointed out to the girl that, in fact, he had a hero with him. It would not be easy to get around him. Waving her elegant staff and surrounding herself with red lights, the girl said softly that she was going to ask for a favor. It seemed that there was nothing in her voice except interest and stupid naivety. She needed an opponent to celebrate reaching level 230. Delight was what was added to her light head after these words. Doran lunged forward, pushing the boy aside and drawing his knives. There was no room for doubts and unnecessary thoughts here, so the knives immediately went straight to the center of the red lights, where the girl was. If you're even one step faster, The man paused briefly, squinting his eyes to see the target. "You can always win," he continued, the lights and weapons mixing with each other, interrupting, Doran rushing into battle straight towards her. She wasn't impressed. Typical heroic words before every battle. Everything as expected. But she clearly didn't like his agility, and with a powerful spell she caught his feet in the ground. The ground around him rose, sucking his feet in more and more. Doran only chuckled that such a weak spell would not catch him. The soil connected with his daggers and rose up. Now he had power over it, not it. Of course, he directed them at her, so to speak, returned the favor. A ringing whistle was heard everywhere where these daggers slid. She waved her hand, knocking away all the knives. Doran had already spent a significant part of his energy. It seemed that the outcome of this fight was known to everyone. The man was clearly offended by this. "My strength is too weak to deal with creatures like you." He was too rude in his expressions. After all, it is not flattering to talk so much about a nice lady. He figured out her plan. She attacked from a completely different side, from above. But now she is exposed, which will make it much easier for Doran to fight. A black energy ball appeared in the girl's hands, which seemed to suck in the entire atmosphere in the cave. Apparently, she's having a lot of fun, because she jokes that she is quite worthy of gratitude, because she will relieve Doran's body of the weight of blood. At this time, several black balls fly straight at the black man. Blood gushed out of the body. The balls sucked it in, and jagged wounds appeared all over Doran's body. Yanwu got it really wrong because his life is completely dependent on Doran's life, and he can't even help him in any way right now. Here it is, the very skill that she so wanted to try. It uses only 30% of her mother, but it is very effective, at least that's what the girl thinks. Doran certainly didn't share her opinion. Pillars of energy appeared from his hand. The blood slowly stopped moving. The energy came from the ring on his hand. It contains a strong energy that has protected the Steinman family for over 100 years. The witch was scared. She didn't expect at all that some family guard had a skill that gave unlimited protection. The skill of hypnosis. Yonu immediately ran up to Doran, asking him what happened and if he was okay. Doran's expression showed surprise. Somehow the man didn't understand obvious things. Therefore, he explained that these were the abilities of the ring. Its protection, although not ideal, was quite enough to repel the attacks of the witch and speed up his healing. Greed woke up in the guy, and he directly asked Doran to give him the ring, to which the man was clearly taken aback. In any case, this is not a world ring, so it's time to tell this little witch to retreat. Otherwise, the outcome of this battle will not be as pleasant as everyone would like. More knives are sent flying, cutting through the air and slicing through the red beams of energy. She reflects everything again. They are both strong. There is definitely a third person missing in their battle. Yura did not expect such strength from Doran. She hoped for a quick outcome of the battle. But here there was such strong resistance. Even if she uses last fort, they should not be underestimated. The girl frowned. Everything is not going as she wanted. While Yanwu was tossing and turning, he caught Yura's attention, but she doesn't know anything about this guy. For example, how strong he can be. 3 more monks appeared not far from Yonu, and he was really confused. He was powerless before them. These cultists are already very close. Will Sir Doran help him now? He has a lot of work to do. It is really difficult to repel the attacks of a crazy woman. The wand is a serious weapon, especially when it is endowed with magical energy. It contains a crystal, somewhat reminiscent of the amethyst we are accustomed to, and it is the one that absorbs all the magic. Yura didn't want to complete this quest with the help of an NPC. She was counting on a player like herself. Such a victory feels much more pleasant. But in any case, she did not retreat. The spell she began to read filled her magic wand with power. This is the most powerful spell that uses all the power of her mana. Such a spell should easily kill players above level 200, especially Doran. And Yura knows this for sure. Darkstorm is the name of this deadly spell. Dispersing into 1,000 fiery rays, pillars of black magic were directed towards the target in the blink of a second. It was huge in scale. There was nowhere to run, nothing to hide behind. A wave of dark magic would kill everyone who stood in its way, be it allies or enemies. "It's all over," flashed through Doran's head. He understood everything. Only a miracle or the enemy's pity could save them now. And this split second, in which the hurricane shortens the distance between them, lasts for them like hours, forcing them to think about all their mistakes. Unexpectedly for Doran, a boy appeared right in front of him. Apparently, he himself did not expect this from himself. The only thing that drove him was complete recklessness, which is quite typical of him. A huge explosion. The wave reached its target. Now there is no turning back. The entire room was illuminated by fiery heat and light. marks from the explosion scattered everywhere. It would seem that only they can cause great damage. What then happened to those who were in the very center? The fire died down, the smoke gradually settled. It was probably a bit too much for use inside the temple, Yura reasoned. But she had already done it, so there was nothing to regret. With a heavy step, she headed straight to the center, where the enemies should once have been. The smoke settled, and glimpses of completely clean and untouched armor began to appear. But was that even possible? Even the strongest hero would not be able to survive after this spell. Well, and apparently our hero and Doran considered themselves a great exception. Because neither of them had a single scratch, they were both surprised. They did not imagine that they could survive. Yura was furious. How could she not know that such a strong player existed? Who was this guy? How did he manage to survive? Her thoughts were filled with a ton of questions. She didn't understand anything at all. Who the hell dared to ruin her moment of glory? Although the guy survived, he only had 1 HP left. Even being able to withstand such a spell does not mean that he will be able to survive this battle, because the enemy is still strong, unlike him. The guy was tormented by questions no less than Yura. He was trying to understand how he was able to withstand a direct hit, and a fleeting thought made the guy realize everything. He recently acquired a new ability. A legend doesn't die that easy, which means that at low health levels he becomes immune to any kind of attack for 5 seconds. A blissful smile spread across his face. The very thought that he was still alive caressed his soul. Nothing worried him except that. Yura was still standing there in confusion. She thought that this was another small player. She would easily defeat him and celebrate her 230th level. This guy was also smiling. From her side, Yanwu looked like a typical self-confident warrior who could easily kill anyone, especially after he showed himself. His smile made her very nervous. How did this happen? Why was someone so strong fighting against her now? Anger turned into panic. Fear and rage merged into one. A storm of emotions sowed chaos in her head. Apparently, Doran was quicker on the uptake than both of them. He didn't care who this guy was, how he survived. He knew one thing, that now his goal was to finish what he started, to kill this girl. Using Yanwu's back as a launch pad, he pushed off from her, flying very high above Yura, drawing his weapon along the way. He mocked Yura, saying that the winner is always one step ahead, despite the mockery, anger, and hatred towards her were visible on his face. Doran's barb stung her, trying to pay in the same coin in their verbal battle. All she could come up with was, "Is that all you can do?" She may be physically stronger, but she really could use some sharper phrases. Anger clouded her vision. It infuriated her how this pathetic old man could look down on her. Fighting off his attacks, she activated her crystal shield. Doran was not prepared. For some reason, he did not think at all that she might have another spell in her reserve, although this is very typical of her. Brushing Doran aside, she consoled herself with the light thoughts that she was almost finished. She just needed to finish off these two before it was too late. But the temple was empty. There was absolutely no one ahead. She was left alone in it. Being so strong, this guy just went out, thought Yura. She expected anything. Attacks, fights, but definitely not this. Doran, who somehow ended up behind, and the witch, both completely confused, said in one voice, "Who does he think he is?" Yanwu sat in the game capsule with a completely dead visible, his face conveying all the pain and disappointment of this mortal world. In fact, this strongest hero died. He lost 2 levels. Now he is at -3, the blue signs irritatingly reported this. But worse was the last sign, which said that he had already died twice in 24 hours. So now he was completely blocked from entering the system for the next 12 hours. Doran's audacity to use the guy's back as a pushing surface dealt him 1 point of damage. His last, insanely valuable 1 HP. The guy's life force became 0, which is imminent death. His expression at that moment simply cannot be described in words. No person in this world has ever endured so much moral pain. Yanwu had just been killed by an ally. If Doran had known how this guy was talking about him at that moment, he would never have wanted to even stand next to him. Yanwu was so angry at him. Yura remained standing stupidly in place. She did not understand what to do now. She was worried that in this game there was such a strong opponent, and he just came out without even hitting her. She was sure that this guy had given in to her. He had humiliated her, laughed at her strength. She would definitely find him and show him how strong a woman's anger could be. The next day, an unknown user amazed the entire Satisfy community. Yura from the Temple of Yaton. The guy continued to defame Dorn's name because he himself had forced the quest on him, and then killed him himself. The poor NPC fool who was not able to help the user. It's all Yura's fault. If it weren't for her, everything would have ended well. Images of a furious Yura with eyes burning like lasers appear in the guy's head. But it might not have ended well. Be that as it may, it is hard for the hero to admit. In this game, the strong destroy the weak. So a calm look at this situation should definitely judge everything. But this is absolutely not to be expected from our hero. He immediately began to write angry comments about Yura. He mentioned everything. He was merciless in his frankness, starting from the fact that she shamelessly interfered with his quest, ending with her character and the dirt on her nose. Yanwu is the biggest loser in the world. He himself admitted it, understanding everything perfectly, but even if so, Yura will not run away from his hatred for her. While the guy was busy inciting hatred towards Yura, another girl appeared in his room, who heard every curse word the guy addressed to Yura. It was a cute girl with a charming bob haircut, and as she approached Yan, she said, "Appa, have you finally gone crazy?" He certainly didn't expect such an unexpected appearance, and squeals of fear immediately spread throughout the room. This cute girl is Shin Sai-hei. She is only 17 years old, she's a 9th grader, and is Yanwu's younger sister. Looking at the garbage dump in his room, she reproaches him, because his whole room smelled terrible. Shin immediately began to clean all this up, but the guy actively forbade her to do this. She got up very early and was already picking on him. Having looked into the capsule and examined everything, she asked if it was really possible to make money in this game, to which the guy with a smug look began to dedicate her to the history of the game, told her that more than 2 billion players play here, and if you play seriously, for example, like him, then you can become successful. Yura, scum, interfered with a low-level player's quest. The girl began to read the guy's angry comments about the witch. He immediately began to justify himself in a completely lifeless voice. Realizing how stupid he looked now, he blamed only Yura for everything. He definitely had nothing to do with it. But the sister didn't even listen. She specifically told Yeon that she couldn't believe that her brother was doing such things. She was very disappointed in him, while he shouted excuses at her. This Yura even interfered in his life here, of course. She is the only one to blame for all the failures. The day came, the sun illuminated the whole city. The houses were empty, all the people were most likely already at work, in schools. Like Yanwu's family, his parents were working, his sister was at school, and he was sitting alone in front of the TV eating some ramen. The world news, Satisfy, was shown on TV. The presenter was an elderly grandfather. Kong Ming, he was at the scene of an emergency. Around him were the ruins of a temple. Every channel was talking about going around the game. It really became popular. If a guy can become famous in it, then he can literally sit on bags of gold, although now he can only dream about it. The news continued. The man was broadcasting directly from the northern part of the Eternal Kingdom. He was in front of the Yaten Temple. Last night, the temple was reportedly allowed. The reporter wondered what could have happened, but the guy already knew the answer. He recognized this temple. What he saw made him turn his food around. Our investigation helped us find out the name of one person, the grandfather continued. The boy listened. It was important for him to know who he would name now. Of course, the person the authors were responsible for this incident was Yura, a black witch ranked 5th overall. Judging by what was left of the temple, they assumed that a fierce battle had taken place there. The correspondent gave the floor to an eyewitness. It was a short guy with long bangs and weak armor. The eyewitness began to tell that after some small events he was forced to run towards the temple from the monster, where he saw Yura using a strong spell against some guy. This guy was clearly a fan of Yura. He immediately mentioned that Yura is incredibly beautiful in reality, but the host showed to return to the topic. The guy became serious again. He remembered how something amazing and shocking even Yura herself happened there. She resorted to her strongest spell, but that guy didn't get a single scratch, the kid finished, remembering how cool Yanwu looked after such a strong attack. The presenter was surprised because this domain must have been one of the top players. How could this boy not recognize his face? He said with a doomed look that a stone fell on him while he was looking at Yura, because she was really beautiful, and he died. The reporter asked the viewers who this mysterious user was, which attracted the attention of the whole world, until the guy on the other side of the screen began to realize that he was famous. He immediately remembers his statistics. They remained the same. Except for his level, it only became lower. Harm such a user can be called the strongest. Of course, there were a lot of nice bonuses from this. Chances to create additional items, the probability of successfully using an item, and much more like that. But there were also penalties, so the guy shouldn't relax. But his main bonus was the passive skill, A Legend Doesn't Die That Easy, because it would allow him to escape from such a powerful spell. After the guy realized that he was now famous, The only thought that came to his mind was that he had to get rich that very second. He immediately grabbed the phone, saying that it was a miracle, no death is in vain, and other naive statements of an enthusiastic person. The phone call went straight to the consultation center. The guy wanted to share information with the world news, because he is the same guy from the Yaton temple. The other end asked for his username. Yeonwoo said proudly, "Grid," and in his head he was already imagining glory and applause for himself alone. But when he was asked to name his level, the guy wasn't even afraid of any tricks. He immediately told the truth that he had a -3rd level. Short rhythmic beeps were heard and the subscriber hung up. All the sorrow of this world fell upon the young man. He fell to his knees, powerlessly, simultaneously blaming Yura for everything. This girl had definitely ruined his whole life. The news reported that there was footage from the scene of the incident. The guy was distracted from his angry thoughts and looked at the screen. In the rubble, 2 figures of the Count's daughter and Doran were visible. The man was wounded and could hardly walk. Yeonwoo was very surprised when he saw them. How could Doran manage to save Irene on his own? Doran looked very bad, and from his tracks one could guess that the battle had been hard. Doran's torment ends. Tears well up in Irene's eyes. She no longer has the strength to hold him, and he falls to the ground. Yeonwoo remembered him as a good guy despite being just an NPC. A nice guy with a nice ring that Yeonwoo has been interested in for a long time. But he no longer cared. He turned away from the TV, preparing to take a little nap. A cute green-haired girl appeared on the screen. She was broadcasting that the user who had attracted the most attention in recent days was now in the news. A strongman began to appear in the frame. The correspondent asked him to introduce himself. He walked in quite confidently. His name was Katz. He was a level 203 warrior player. Hearing what was happening on TV, the guy remembered this Katz. He was the one who became famous for his idiotic behavior. They say that he is the son of the executive director of a large company. Katz's ranking rose sharply to 53rd place, and the reporter asked how he achieved such success. It rose 30 positions in just 3 months. Yeonwoo perked up. He jumped up, shouting out sentences of indignation because it took him years to get to level 70. This guy is Japanese, but right now he is filming on a Korean channel, where the first place in the rating belongs to Yura. Katz, looking into the camera, said with a smug look that now first place will be his. Yura's time is up. He will take a place in the global ranking and will dance on her grave. Yeonwoo wondered how he was going to jump from 53rd place to 5th place straight away. Even though he didn't like Yura, he admitted that she was very good at fighting. The red and black sword cut through the air, which Katz claimed was the secret to his victory. It certainly looks like a high-class sword, but in Yeonwoo's opinion, it's too simple to be a secret. The sword began to burst into flames, and Katsu began to look even more like an idiot with his proud appearance. See if I'm right. As if to say, he demonstrates the strength and power of his sword, it became covered in red lightning and fire. Yeonwoo wasn't impressed by the sword at all. It looked just awful. This is Katz's passive skill. Any weapon he picks up will transform into this form, and the more he attacks, the more his health will be restored. The girl cowered in fear as she stood next to the flaming sword. She had never heard of such a skill before, to which she heard in response that it was not surprising, since Katz himself had received it 3 months ago. Katz's epic and only class is the Blood Warrior, another hidden class. With just one skill, Katz has risen very high. Having become inspired by the idea of using his class for its intended purpose, Yeonwoo began to think about how he could do this. The bright blue sky illuminated the turrets and taverns of the small town. This city is Bayron. This is where our hero found himself as soon as he entered the game. Being an enemy of the Church of Yaton, he can no longer appear at the temple. That's why he was thrown here, according to his memories. He was here before, on Asher's quests. An elven boy in the crowd was shouting out an announcement that they were looking for a mage of level 130 or higher to go to the Mubaid ruins. Another man was recruiting players above level 200 for a raid in the Guardian of the Forest, where they go for blue orichalcum. All of them recruited players of level 100 and above, which was quite logical, because outside this city there were monsters of the same level. Therefore, a -level 3 player like Yeonwoo will be left alone to die of starvation, which is why he should find a more suitable city. A cart passed by him, and after assessing the safety, he came to the conclusion that it looked good. Approaching the coachman, Yeonwoo asked him to take him to the nearest safe town, and he recommended the village for newcomers, Vinstvon, but it would cost 10 gold. Yeonwoo was very doubtful about even having that amount, and rightly so. He saw that he only had 3 gold coins in his account, which was not enough even for a simple piece of bread. The coachman already understood what was going on, and in a dry tone ordered them to get away from him. Yeonwoo hasn't said anything yet, But the coachman already knows all the tricks and excuses. Yanwoo would like to say that he wants to lower the price because his mother is sick, but the coachman definitely doesn't believe this story anymore. He slides down the stone wall, accusing all people of being greedy for money and that he is doomed to die alone. Because of Asher, the guy became a beggar, and now he also has minus level 3 with a completely flawed class. He covers his head from the influx of these negative thoughts. But he stops at the class. He is Pagma's receiver. This means that he can create items. The expression of despair changed to a smile. If he creates them, he will be able to level up and get money at the same time. Finally, something good. He decided to refine his stats, hoping to find something interesting like Master of Blacksmithing, which increases all item stats by 10%. When he creates items, his attribute points and reputation also increase. He has already mastered the skill of Master and the first level of Legend. This is very good. And the best skill is Creation, which allows him to create items himself. He can create 3 items of equipment, the technology for creating which he has already mastered. If the epic armor class is so great, then the legendary one must be even better. Good thing our hero knows about it. He activated the legendary skill Blacksmith's Creation, wanting to create a 2-handed sword that would make hunting faster and level up easily. He was presented with a choice of materials he wanted to use, but he didn't really know much, so he just wanted something sturdy. He had heard somewhere about blue orichalcum before, and these memories immediately popped into his head. He was required to independently enter a drawing of his 2-handed sword, which he wanted to create, and then describe its characteristics. A stream of fantasy immediately pours out onto the canvas. The guy was drawing a cool, big, strong, shark-like sword, heavy but light, dark but shining. The attack power is more than 10 million. Meteorites will fall after each swing. There are no obstacles for him. He kills with one blow. The guy was directly immersed in his dreams, carried away by the work. So he drew his masterpiece of art, the curved lines emerging from the sword, which really did look like a shark. The guy stared at his drawing for a long time, and it was completely unclear from his face whether he was criticizing it or praising it. But in his case, obviously the second option, he really liked his masterpiece. The sword was like a shark and an anchovy at the same time. Automatic adjustments and corrections to the synthesis of characteristics, options, and materials began to be made. The game made automatic adjustments without the guy's consent, which is completely understandable, since he could make a completely absurd sword, but it was unclear where so many people and screens came from. The screens flew out of the limits. Blue light lit up everywhere. The guy carefully watched everything that was happening. Suddenly, the guy began to understand all the information. The automatic correction ended. He was completely confused. Even though it's a new model, is it such a cool effect? He wondered as the drawing appeared in reality. He felt like a real blacksmith. And now the sword finally appeared in his space. New, shiny, with a patterned design, vaguely reminiscent of a shark. The sword's durability was 1090, attack power 1820, defense 80, plus 50 to agility. All of this caused delight in the guy. The guy's said characteristics were taken into account, and there were also additional options, but the blocking of enemy attacks was still low, so the guy only had to find blue orichalcum from those guys who were heading to Forest Guardian. He immediately remembered them. They were completely different people, knights, warriors, archers, and they were all only level 200 and above, so the chance of getting into their group was incredibly small. Here the guy noticed the restrictions on his sword. The level had to be above 300, strength 5000, advanced sword skill level 8 or higher. All this was despite the fact that the highest ranked player was only level 250. Even if you put all the attribute points into strength, it was simply impossible to get 5000. And there is only one person alive today who has an advanced skill level, so reaching an advanced level, Yanwoo just made some trash with a single and rare skill, but it was in the form of a shark. Big, powerful, but unfortunately, trash. But these restrictions do not mean that Yanwoo cannot use the sword, because they do not apply to him. Everything should happen the same way as with his current equipment. Even if some further penalties are in effect, this sword will still be stronger than any others if the guy really succeeds. It's good that the guy doesn't give up, trying to see at least something good. Now all he needs is to get into the Forest Guardian group. The guy exhaled from these thoughts. These thoughts brought a confident smile to his face. Now it was time to leave. It was very difficult to survive on the front lines with a -3rd level. The guy approached the long-haired man who had previously announced recruitment for the group, but had received a curt refusal. He was dumbfounded. He didn't understand how to proceed further. The blockhead explained that they were only recruiting players of level 190 or higher. And judging by the guy's appearance, you couldn't tell that he was even level 60. Laughing coquettishly, the boy convinced the group that he was actually level 100, and that equipment wasn't as important as his weapon proficiency. An evil aura hung over the guy. The group was greatly offended by such words. Now they all think that he is looking down on them. Thousands of condemnations poured in towards the guy. This is clearly not at all what he expected. A voice from afar ordered to stop, and all the people turned in his direction. Someone from the crowd recognized him. It was a certain Mr. Regus. He was a guy with a very good physique. His clothes looked like they were equal since his torso was completely bare. He was telling the group that since they were only guarding the boss, all the other dirty work could be pushed off to Yona. People in the group began to whisper. Echoes of familiar words could be heard. They said that this was the Regus of the Sadaka Guild. Some did not even know him, and some were very delighted. Regus was at level 180, although the restrictions on his items are very strict. He has the first place in the martial arts ranking. His name is Mr. Taekwondo. This ranker looks so good, Yanwu felt a strong pressure of the injustice of this world. The long-haired man who was against taking Yona into the team began to prove his opinion to Regus that the guy was not suitable at all. But he didn't even listen to the end and, interrupting, said that a lot of people were needed to make it easier to clear the area. What a nice guy. Even despite his appearance, Yanwu thinks with a smirk. I understand what you mean, but can we convince the rest of the team? The long-haired man doubts. But Regus is already full of enthusiasm. He proposes a one-on-one match to test Yanwu's abilities, and if he can prove his control skills, the problem will be solved. Yanwu's expression changes instantly. I'm screwed, he realizes with despair. The man who was against accepting Yanwu into their ranks enthusiastically agrees to this decision and suggests starting immediately, without delay. However, the guy is already running away as fast as he can, only managing to shout that his plans have changed and he urgently needs to work on controlling his left leg. Regus is frustrated and trying to figure out why that guy ran away, because they would have definitely worked well together. Yanwu is no less upset. Everything didn't go according to plan, and now he will have to earn money for the cart first. Please name the created item. A game window will appear. Now Yanwu understood the point. Creation has a limited number of slots, so they should only be used in special cases. From now on, he will focus on earning money for the trip and learning the process of creating objects. This is just the beginning, he decides. To accomplish his goals, he will need a special place. After a short search, he finds a building with a sign that says Smith's Forge. However, the reception he receives there is far from friendly. The local blacksmith decides from the very first second that the guy is just making fun of him and looks down on all blacksmiths. He is sure that today's youth do not even know the basics of blacksmithing and only want to make money. Yanwu doesn't lose hope of persuading the man. The blacksmith replies that he is not the first to underestimate them. Smith believes that those who look down on other people and their property are all the same and have never done anything worthy with their own hands in their entire lives. Don't waste your time here and just fuck off, he tells the guy rather rudely. Frustrated, Yanwu goes outside and leans his forehead against the cold wall in despair. Because this was his only way to earn money for the trip. Is he just going to die in this city? However, almost immediately a blacksmith comes out after him, who felt sorry for the boy. Don't disturb the neighbors with your crying at my wall. Go and chop me some wood, he says discontentedly. Another task sign appears, according to which the guy needs to chop 500 units of firewood, and for this he will receive 10 experience points and 20 bronze coins. The touched guy immediately agrees. It had been quite a while since he had normal quests, and now with just this quest he would be able to level up. But in this game, you can potentially fail even by simply chopping wood incorrectly. It's unclear whether the subject's assessment will help Yan. The guy decides to try, and his knowledge of the old axe reaches 100%. Now he has fully learned how to create it. However, he is confused by the fact that theoretical knowledge certainly differs from practice. The guy carefully examines the log, into the very middle of which he needs to hit. Having made up his mind, he abruptly brings the axe down on the log, cutting it in half. Yanwu is delighted that he managed to cut the log with just one blow. If he reaches 100% knowledge of the legendary item, he will become successful very soon. Yanwu decides that he will chop all this wood in an instant, but after 2 hours his self-confidence evaporates. He was only able to chop 150 pieces of wood due to his low stamina level. Gathering the last of his will into a fist, the guy decides that he must give it his all. He cannot delay at all if he wants to escape from this city. So you'll have to grit your teeth and endure it a little longer. A new notification arrives. He gains the legendary skill Toughness, which allows him to not get tired too quickly. It is not surprising that he immediately felt the disappearance of fatigue, and even seemed to grow a little younger. Now the guy is confident that he will succeed. He will definitely sort everything out. Some time passes. Perfectly chopped logs are laid out in neat piles. In the very center, a tired Yong was sprawled on his back. "You chopped 1,000 pieces of wood in just 6 hours?" The surprised blacksmith approaches him. "I am also a blacksmith, even despite my appearance," the guy replies. "It's just funny. How can such a weakling be a real blacksmith?" The man is perplexed. A new quest appears, according to which Yong must mine 80 units of iron ore, and the reward for completing it will be 55 experience points and will significantly improve the attitude of the blacksmith. If the boy successfully completes this task, the blacksmith will believe him. Yong understands that such a large amount of experience points will return him to level 0 again, so he happily agrees. Inspired, he heads into the mine. Already on the way to the desired place, he encounters the first obstacles, because a 30-minute walk took him 3 whole hours, and his energy is exhausted by the simplest movements. His level is minus, and he's also wearing level 70 equipment, so it's no wonder he moves so slowly. Yanwu approaches some miners he doesn't know and tells them he is here to mine iron ore for Mr. Smith. They look at each other in bewilderment because this guy looks too skinny. They are sure that the guy will only get in their way, and besides, they are too busy right now to deal with him. So the miners send Yona to the nearest corner and order her to repeat everything they do exactly. They are very unhappy that Smith actually sent this guy to them, despite the fact that they are too busy with their work to teach anyone. The guys plan to talk to Smith about this at the first opportunity and express their dissatisfaction to him. They both turn around in confusion, hearing some sounds right behind them. Their gaze is met with the spectacle of this puny fellow, quite successfully mining ore. Looking at him, you get the feeling that this is far from the first time he has done this. Since when is iron ore so easy to mine? One of them wonders. At this time, Yanwu feels like his body is about to break, but at the same time his mind is completely clear. Memories of Smith not believing in him and telling him not to waste his time here and just leave flash through his mind. This memory gives him the stubbornness to work until dark. Today he is more persistent than ever. The miners, who have been watching the boy all this time, admit that he is magnificent and they must apologize to him for their words. "He is special. I am sure that one day this guy can become a great miner," says one of them. Yanwu continues to work tirelessly. Today he mined 170 units of iron ore. "Persistence is my weapon," shouts the happy guy. Now Grid has reached level 1. This means that his characteristics, which were reduced to a minimum due to the loss of a level, have been restored. The basic stats of Pagma's heir have been applied. Now Grid is finally back to level 1. The guy looks at his stats and is surprised that usually a first-level character should have about 22 of them. But Pagma's heir has as many as 165. And if you also count the stamina that was created earlier, and the additional points in unstoppability, then there are 182 of them. Also, he suddenly discovers 40 attribute points, with 10 points given out for each level, so it's unclear why there are so many of them. This is amazing, the boy thinks. When he returns to the forge, Smith says that he is extremely embarrassed because he treated such an outstanding person so rudely. Now the guy's closeness with Smith has increased by 60 points, and his reputation in the city of Bayron has increased by a whopping 200. Yona is overcome by strange feelings. The blacksmith asks him not to be angry and tries to hug the guy, but he breaks away with all his might. The guy asks Smith to recommend some things he could sell to earn money for the trip. Smith replies that he just had something prepared for him. With these words, he hands the boy the Jaffa arrow. The guy is disappointed because cheap consumables don't bring in much money. However, the blacksmith explains that this is an unusual arrow, as it is made of a fusion of Jaffa and steel. Its effect is to ignore some of the enemy's defensive skills, so it is indispensable in raids against such strong golems as, for example, the Guardian of the Forest. This changes everything, and the guy decides to try to evaluate her right away. Through the evaluation result, he learns that the price of one such arrow is 6 silvers, and its attack power ranges from 20 to 26 units. And now his knowledge is 89%, meaning he can skillfully use this weapon. If I improve my knowledge by disassembling the arrow, will I be able to understand how to make it? The boy thinks. Smith calls him to follow him to teach him how to create such arrows, and Yanwu wonders why the man's face has turned such a strange pinkish tint. The blacksmith explains to him that the ore must first be smelted in a blast furnace. Then, it is necessary to extract limestone and all kinds of impurities from the iron. By cooling the molten iron, he will get cast iron, which is not suitable for weapons. So to avoid this, you need to reduce the amount of carbon by smelting. Now the smelting process begins, and the blacksmith suggests that the boy try to do it himself, but warns that it will be difficult to calculate the correct proportion of minerals. But Yeonwoo decides to try anyway. He watched the blacksmith work carefully, and despite the fact that this game is quite realistic, knowledge is obtained here quite easily. Moreover, the guy has a class compensation effect, and these arrows indicate the direction and strength of the bellows. It took less than 5 minutes for him to heat up the oven. Pagma's air is sensitive to temperature, so he can measure the temperature in the furnace quite accurately. It's incredible that he sees a notification window with the exact temperature at the moment. He is confident that he will definitely succeed. And it turns out he is absolutely right. The task is completed, and he receives 80 experience points. His intimacy with Smith increases by 30 points, and he receives 3 Jaffa ingots. "You are beautiful and so sexy," the blacksmith shouts enthusiastically. The boy jumps up in fear and quickly moves away from the man. "You are not just talented, but it's as if Pagma himself was reborn." Smith continues to admire. "He didn't reincarnate, but got an heir." Yeonwoo grins to himself. The guy has leveled up again and is now on level 2. Next, the tips need to be made, so the blacksmith orders the molten metal to be mixed and heated and then poured into the mold. Once the metal hardens, the result will be a tip like this, and Smith and Yeonwoo will go to the anvil. While you're hammering the tip, remember to balance the backside and also sand the edges well, the blacksmith tells the boy. In the end, you have to place the tip on the arrow shaft, and to improve penetration, you have to get the weight balance right. The blacksmith wonders if the boy will be able to do it. Another sign informs us that the method for obtaining the Jaffa arrow has been studied. Now the guy is confident in his abilities. His knowledge of the Jaffa arrow has reached 100%. "The materials are free the first time, so get started and I'll keep an eye on you," says the blacksmith. Smith thinks that this guy is not ordinary at all, because he holds molten metal like a real professional. He then remembers that he forgot to teach Yeonwoo how to make arrow shafts, and offers to make them instead while the metal cools. "No need, I'll make them myself," the guy replies. Because of his 100% knowledge, he was given another way to obtain it, and all this time he was only observing, but he still improved his knowledge. This list is short now, but the day will come when it will be filled to the brim. Now he needs to straighten the curved parts and, after cutting, make the plumage using glue. The efficiency is impressive, thanks to his dexterity and the compensation effect. The blacksmith is amazed that the boy made them just after observing. However, he does not understand why he cools the tips, because they will not be strong, although they will become much harder. "Don't worry, I plan to toughen them up," Yeonwoo replies. The blacksmith is surprised that the guy even knows about tempering, but this is not usually done with consumables, because then there will not be enough time to create a large number of such arrows. The guy is convinced that if he makes them better, he will be able to sell them for a higher price. There is only one thought going through his head. Even if a non-entity like him can become successful, it is simply necessary to do so. He is obliged to make every effort to achieve his goal. "Now just insert the tip," the blacksmith commands. All he did all these days was work hard, and he never even thought that one day he would get so much pleasure from work. Yong finished creating the arrow, and now, apparently, the task should be completed. Breath of the legendary blacksmith is activated. Another notification pops up. The arrow in his hand is enveloped in a purple glow. "What's going on?" The guy screams in panic. He opens his stats to see what happened. His new unique skill is that when he focuses on creating an item, it will be filled with the will of Pagma's heir, and all the stats of the created item will increase by 5%, and there will also be a small chance of obtaining special stats. The Jaffa arrow now has an epic rating, and its attack power ranges from 35 to 42 units. "Epic?" Yeonwoo cries out in surprise. The task is completed, and all of the guy's stats are increased by 4 points due to the creation of an epic item, and his reputation throughout the continent is increased by 80 points. The guy is surprised to realize that he managed to create an epic thing and even raise his level. Just think that a guy who doesn't even look like an apprentice can make such a magnificent arrow. The blacksmith admires. Yeonwoo thinks that he wanted to make a sword, but he got an epic class arrow. And yet, among all the existing arrows, there is not a single one that would deal more than 40 units of damage. And what's more, sometimes it can completely ignore the enemy's defense. The guy thinks that the effect of his class is simply amazing, and it is probably better than most one-handed weapons at level 20 right now. Now it's time for him to hit the road. "I cannot keep these wonderful weapons, take them with you," the blacksmith tells him. The guy gets 100 Jaffa arrows and 3 Jaffa ingots. The boy thanks the man for taking care of him and thinks that the blacksmith probably gave him so much because of the high level of intimacy. It would be nice if we could live together, the blacksmith blushes, and Yanwu shyly asks him not to say such touching things. The guy thinks that this wait will definitely slow him down. Even though the gifts are good, the journey to the city will take a long time. In any case, he will be able to leave this place while he sells arrows. Wait for me, fighters, I bring you some interesting things, the guy thinks. At this time, the Tzedakah Guild had already arrived at the raid site. Without wasting any time, the team set about their mission. However, not everything went as they would have liked. The Forest Keeper surprised them, and there were many more golems than they expected. None of the weapons the boys had could help them reduce human losses. These monsters were strong and ferocious. Jishuka, the guildmaster, is determined to defeat these bastards. "Move if you want to live," she shouts to her comrades. Besides her, another member of the guild is Regus, whom Yanwu had encountered earlier. Toban, the same long-haired guy who didn't want to accept Yona into their ranks. And also Vantner, who is not inferior to any of them in strength. In the end, the guild manages to win. But unfortunately, many people died. "Even though we killed the boss, these guys died from small fry," Jishuka says bitterly. "The losses are too great. Now we need to find out what kind of loot they got and whether the amethyst shield they so badly desired is among it." Unfortunately, this time they only managed to get 13 units of black metal, 7 units of orichalcum ore, and only 1 unit of blue orichalcum. "The amethyst shield, which has the lowest drop rate, has not appeared again," Regus says with disappointment. Vantner replies that they fought all day and came away with a loss, and the only valuable acquisition was the blue orichalcum. "Toban, how many people died?" asks Jishuk. The man says with a distressed voice that while the main troops were fighting the boss, the number of golems increased, which became a huge problem and led to the death of 75 people. The girl realizes that the difficulty of these S-rank linked quests is much higher than they expected, and some measures need to be taken. The fourth raid has already failed to produce any results, and the value of the Guardian of the Forest is rapidly falling among the participants. At this rate, the quality of users in the next raids will decrease significantly. The Tzedakah Guild is mainly composed of high-ranking users, but due to their small numbers, their popularity is low compared to their ranks. The 17 members of the Tzedakah Guild had been together since the LTS game, and due to their small numbers, they always participated in raids with regular players. But even this method had its limitations. Tobin believes that without the Amethyst Shield, they will not be able to continue with the related quest, so for now, it is worth putting it aside and working on increasing their powers. "Let's not rush and wait a little," says Vantner. "Okay," Jishuka answers. The Tzedakah Guild is abandoning all raiding and focusing on leveling up its members and upgrading its gear, she cries out sharply. "Those who don't get 15 levels in 3 months will die. And Regus, in particular, unlike the others, needs at least 20 levels. You're unlucky, you know her, right?" Vantner laughs. Jishuka goes to buy a new weapon to replace the one he spent. She asks the seller to show her the Jaffa arrows. The situation in the guild is really dire right now. They could have lured people in at the very beginning of the game, but they won't be able to do that now, so they need to at least buy some arrows. What kind of idiot sells arrows for 3 times the price, she wonders, quickly scanning the list of offers. A regular Jaffa arrow costs no more than 6 silver coins. Are they epic class? The girl is amazed. These special arrows are truly epic, have great attack power, and ignore some of the enemy's defensive properties. Impossible, Jishuka thinks. She asked almost every blacksmith to make her such arrows, but no one could. The girl had never heard of arrows of such high quality, and with an ability that could be decisive in a high-level battle. Who could have made these arrows if it wasn't top 1 blacksmith Panmir and top 2 Steng? Is there really a blacksmith who could have surpassed them? How can I level up 20 times in 3 months? At this time, Regus complains to Vantner at lunch. "Whatever the case, I am ready to pay for the last piece of meat in your life," the man laughs at him. An announcement comes from the guild leader. Jishuka orders everyone to start searching among the blacksmiths for the person whose player level is lower than the skill level. But she did say to level up. Isn't the guild master being too frivolous? Regus is indignant, but they all have no choice but to obey. This player has a skill that will lead us to defeat the Forest Keeper. And if she is so confident, then we need to find that guy, says Vantner. The small team of elite players in this guild managed to reach the top 3 in each class in just half a year. However, feeling their superiority, they no longer accept new members. They may not be as well-known or influential as other guilds, but they have been noticed and will now have power in their hands. "It's us, the Tzedaka Guild," Jashuka says proudly. She believes that if this blacksmith is better than Panmir and Sting, then his level of craftsmanship and productivity are beyond imagination. The guilds of the entire continent will be thrown into chaos searching for this blacksmith, so they must find him first. Is this even possible? Have you heard the rumors too? A surprised voice of some guy is heard. Some powerful guild is looking for that blacksmith everywhere. Maybe he did something cool? He continues. This guy turns to Panmir, but he is lost in his thoughts and does not listen to him at all. He just saw the news about the epic arrow. This arrow was created by a craftsman with a high level of skill and productivity, but a lack of experience and reputation. Panmir is upset that even he is not called a master craftsman in the description, even though he was the first one to create an epic-level item. Meanwhile, Yanwu, the man who had everyone's attention, was busy destroying instant noodles. When will this labor exchange open? He yawns tiredly. After some time, the exchange opens. A young man with a folder in his hands begins to list the available tasks. The construction site of Shinwu's building needs 4 workers, and Yanwu raises his hand to agree, but gets elbowed in the stomach by a man standing next to him. This impudent man takes this vacancy for himself. Next, 3 experienced tilers are required. And again, the guy tries to raise his hand, but he is not allowed to do so. What the hell? I want to make money too, so stop acting like this. The guy is furious and indignant. The following company is looking for someone who can install electrical cables, and they are promising 110,000 won per person for this job. The guy is not going to respond to this vacancy because he already tried himself in this business last year, and the losses from medical bills exceeded his income. Suddenly, one of the men grabs Yanwu's hand and raises it up, indicating consent. Everyone else pretends nothing happened, and the guy has to follow the labor exchange employee to the job. The next morning arrives. Yanwu tries to leave the house unnoticed, but he is not allowed to do so. "Finish eating tomorrow. Where are you going so early in the morning?" his mother asks him. The father demands that the boy sit with them a little longer. Yanwu tries to come up with a decent excuse because if he pays the interest on the loan, he will only have 9,221 left. "We'll give you money for the day's work, so take a break today," his father tells him, handing over some paper bills totaling 70,000 won. The guy sadly accepts the money because the daily earnings are now at least 90,000 won. His sister asks him to be grateful for what he is given, and says that she has prepared a bath for him so that he can relax a little today. The boy looks at his family, and the thought occurs to him that his father usually leaves early in the morning for work at the grocery store. But today, he was apparently waiting for his son to have breakfast together. "I have the most wonderful family," the boy thinks touchingly. But out loud he asks his father to pay off his debts. Immediately in response to his question, his father hits him in the head with a bowl of rice. Yanwu is back in the game again. After loading, he finds himself in an unfamiliar place. After paying off his debt, his savings account is at 0, so he has no motivation at all. He needs to get to another village quickly. The guy decides to see how high the price for his arrows has risen. What he sees deeply shocks him. The latest bid for 1 arrow is currently 72 silver. Yanwu quickly adds up the numbers in his head and realizes that for 99 arrows made in just 6 hours, he will receive a whopping 71 gold pieces, or 80,000 won. Now, he doesn't have to go to the labor exchange. Epic items have a 15% commission, so he ends up with 60 gold and 59 silver. If I can make money by making things, I might as well not leave, right? The guy thinks for a second. However, he quickly remembers the same blacksmith who offered to live together, and decides that staying in this city would be too dangerous. And Yanwu heads off to find the nearest free carriage. Already sitting in the carriage, the young man complains to the coachman that the fare was 8 gold and 90 silver coins, which is too expensive. "By the way, you said the village for beginners is called Winston?" he asks. The coachman replies that due to the high population growth, this village will soon receive city status, and perhaps the heir of the Steam family will become the new mayor of this city. A familiar surname, the guy thinks. Very soon, they reach the village. "Finally, I have arrived." The young man rejoices. He opens his card again to look at the statistics. It is stated there that when creating an item, the chance of receiving a bonus effect and the chance of enchanting the item are increased. It will also be able to equip all things, but there is a high probability of receiving penalties depending on the limitation of the item. In addition, there is a chance of increasing reputation and charisma, but at the same time, the weight limit is exceeded, the speed of movement is reduced, and the use of the skill is also limited, and the chance of imposing the weakness effect is as high as possible. In his inventory, he has several jars of medium potion, advanced potion, medium strength potion, Jaffa ingots, and Jaffa arrows. Arriving in the city, Yonu realizes that Winston is 4 times larger than Byron, and the streets here are much more lively. However, it is difficult for him to walk with such a load, so he needs to clear his inventory first. He needs to put all his things in some warehouse. Besides that, the guy also needs to evaluate Mengel's armor and Mammon's sword. And if his weapon and armor skill goes up, the penalty will probably be less. Now his mastery of the Mammon two-handed sword had reached 30%, and his mastery of the Mengel plate armor had reached 65%. Due to the improvement in skill level, penalties have been reduced, another sign says. Now his weapons and armor have had their attack power reduction and resistance reduction changed for the better. Great, at least that way, Yanwu thinks. Durability has decreased so he can increase his understanding by repairing items, but at the same time he also needs to save money now. Energy is needed to create items, so the guy decides to pawn the equipment and goes to the storage. The worker tells him that it will cost 30 silver pieces and 10 silver pieces for each item. Yan has to agree to these conditions, and he decides to first place the weapons and armor in storage. And he decides to keep the arrow as a souvenir. Now he is light as a feather and feels much better, so he decides to go in search of the forge. He looks at the people passing by and realizes that, judging by the equipment, this is a beginner's area. As he moves forward, he meets people of all different levels. After some time, he finally finds what he wants. This forge is simply huge. Apparently a blacksmith of an improved class or even higher works in it. Just right for me, Yanwu thinks. Another sign pops up with brief information on the Master Blacksmith technique. This is a master effect that will make blacksmiths of advanced level and above treat the wearer well. Without hesitating for another second, the young man opens the heavy door and goes inside. However, disappointment awaits him there. At first, Yanwu thinks the forge is empty, but then he realizes that it is not. In the corner, he notices a man with an empty bottle of booze, who immediately asks him irritably what he is doing here. "I want to create a best-selling item here. Could you help me?" Yonu asks hopefully. The man replies that this place has long since outlived its usefulness, because after the Miro company bought out blacksmith shops and trading platforms and began selling items at low prices, customers turned away from this place. This forge closed long ago, the man concludes. Yanwu is upset and is about to leave here to find another place to make items. "Hey, old con!" Suddenly voices are heard from the front door. "I told you to hand over this building to us, while we ask nicely." One of the 5 guys who entered the forge says rudely to the old man. The guy realizes that the situation is becoming dangerous and problematic. "Our kindness has its limits, so sign this paper already." The stranger hands the document to the blacksmith. Yanwu understands that this is a contract for the transfer of all rights to this building. And if this is the Miro company, then it is very influential. He doesn't know what's going on but decides to find out more before trouble starts. "You saw the contract, right? Are you a spy for the scanner company?" Suddenly, a stranger addresses Yan. The guy thinks to himself that such lawless people sometimes kill players. It seems that these guys are about level 35 and it is not worth fighting them yet, but rather to behave naturally. "In fact, I am not from here. I came here not knowing that the forge was closed," the young man answers. Old man Han says that these damn criminals want to destroy the family business that has passed through 7 generations. In response, the men demand that he watch his language, and as a reward for what they went through because of him, he will have to give them half the amount stated in the contract. He hasn't even agreed yet, thinks the young man, already heading for the exit. "Didn't your only son die of illness? Or is this his grave?" One of the men continues to mock. "How dare you say such things about my son with your filthy mouth?" Here's the screams of old Yanwu. The guy tries to convince himself to leave this place quickly, but he is not sure that the old man will be okay. And a quest called the Blacksmith's Fury appears. It is necessary to get rid of the henchmen of the Miro company and break the contract for the sale of the forge. The reward for completing this task will be an increase in Khan's resistance to alcohol and his maximum favor. And the skill, Blacksmith's Fury, will be activated. But if the guy fails the task, then in a few days Khan will die, and all tasks associated with him will disappear. This quest is a class skill, so it simply must be completed. The guy estimates his chances of winning, and remembers that he has a reliable skill, Patience of the legendary blacksmith, which will increase his health, defense, and agility by 200% for an hour. If the guy's health reaches the limit, a passive skill is activated, giving invulnerability for 5 seconds. But the problem is that he left all his equipment in storage and was left without any weapons. "Wait, but I have it!" The guy suddenly remembers. And this is an epic level weapon. This is the same Jaffa arrow, and now it will come in handy. Although it does little damage, it will still work if the complete disregard for defense works. Watch your language when you talk to your elders. Yanwu approaches the leader of this gang. Old Man Khan looks at the boy in bewilderment. There is a limit to everything, even if you are collectors, the guy continues. We left you alive, you madman. Just shut up and disappear. You won't do anything with just one arrow, one of the men shouts at him. However, the young man is confident in his abilities. Don't get cocky, you bastard, he shouts at the collector. The skill, Blacksmith's Fury, gives him 10% to attack power and 30% to attack speed for 20 seconds. The head of the collectors pulls his sword out of its sheath and attacks the guy. Yanwu manages to dodge the attack at the last moment. Since when did low-level warriors become so fast? He thinks. However, it has the advantage of a narrow staircase. Whose eye should I poke out first? Yanwu laughs. With angry cries, the collectors grab their weapons and rush after him. What will you do with your arrow? One of them laughs. However, the guy has something to surprise them with. Blacksmith's Fury is activated for the next 20 seconds. The amazed collectors looked at the young man with bewilderment. Their comrade had just died from a common arrow. Is this an ordinary arrow? Open your eyes, Yanwu shouts at them. He will definitely complete this task. Surprisingly, thanks to the increase in attack speed, he can hit twice as fast. Moreover, it was possible to finish everything in just 2 blows. A notification appears that he killed the bandit from Winston, and now his reputation is increased by 60 points. And he also becomes an enemy of all bandits and receives 4,300 experience points. Now Yanwu has risen to level 8. For killing a level 35, he received 5 whole levels for himself. His stat points increased to 110. These guys have high attack power, but weak defense, which means that, in order to defeat the rest, you need to invest points in strength and agility. There are 4 of them left, so the young man will have to use everything he has. So he puts 50 points into strength and 50 points into dexterity. There are only 10 seconds left until the end of the Blacksmith's Fury skill. Yanwu must try to kill everyone during this time. The guy's blow sends one of the men flying far to the side and hitting the floor painfully. Prague, are you okay? One of his comrades immediately rushes to him. I'm not gonna die here. And this guy just got lucky, he replies. But his attacks are very fast and we can't fight with big weapons on a narrow staircase, the leader says. Yanwu is upset that even after raising his stats, he still can't kill these guys. If you don't want to die, then surrender, the leader shouts at him. Even if you resist, it won't change anything. The guy understands that if they surround him, he will die immediately from the first 2 or 3 blows. But he has a backup plan. He has pretty low health and 0 defense, but if they surround him, he can kill them all. Until then, all he needs to do is take care of his health. He decides to activate the legendary stamina of the blacksmith to increase his health, defense, and agility by 200% for a full hour. Thank you for saving our time. I will repay you in full for killing my comrade. The head of the collector says angrily. Great, come on in, Yanwu thinks. Without further thought, he presses the skill activation button. Ready to die? The collector asks with a grin. And then a notification pops up that the skill could not be activated. Die, you bastard! Prague is already rushing towards him. What bad luck? Yanwu thinks as he jumps up and dodges the attack. It is vital for him to create conditions for the activation of the skill. Meanwhile, the debt collectors are attacking him en masse. Yanwu begins to lose health. His maximum health is 316 units. But in order to survive, he has to drink an average health potion worth a whopping 1,500 units. If he can't hold out, he will die. The collectors don't give him a second's rest. The blows rain down, each one taking away precious health units. He fights back instinctively, slashing and blocking, but there are too many of them. His movements become slower and more imprecise, and he doesn't have time to dodge the next blow. Yan received 200 units of damage. Now the guy needs to be even more careful and attentive, but the more time passes, the weaker he becomes. It seems the guy has no choice but to urgently drink a medium-strength potion to increase his strength by 50 units for 5 minutes. He drinks 2 bottles worth 10 gold each, which is about 24,001. We're squeezing him, the chief collector shouts. But Yanwu successfully dodges all of their attacks and remains unharmed. Yes, he is slippery like an eel, but let's see how long he can last. The men are indignant. They're all attacking together. Can't I do anything even with the reinforcements? Yonu panics. He needs time so that his legs can at least rest a little. The guy comes up with a brilliant idea to buy himself some time, so he stops and turns sharply to face the men. You thought it would be that easy? I don't want to kill you, so leave the contract and get lost, he says. Shut your fucking mouth. Do you know you killed Neil? We'll just kill you for this. The collectors shout at him in rage. Are you sure you really want this? It's not too late to save your life by stalling for time, boy. Stop talking this nonsense. The only one who will die today is you. One of the gang shouts at him. Just look at yourself. How are you going to kill us with a leg like that? Without letting him finish speaking, the guy suddenly pounces on the man with another attack. And this time he succeeds in killing him. Johnson! The others shout, watching in fury as their comrade dies. Who said you can let your guard down? Yanwu smiles. We are not close enough to have such deep conversations. A notification appears that he killed the robber and receives 4,000 points for this. The young man's level has been raised again. Now he is at level 8, and many of his stats have been increased. When creating an item, the chance of getting a bonus effect and the chance of enchanting the item are increased. It can also equip all items, but there is a high probability of getting a penalty depending on the item's limitation. In addition, the probability of increasing reputation and charisma level increases. The new blue plaque states that as Pagma's descendant, Yanwu inherited his will and technique, so he now has an ideology that is to use blacksmithing for the benefit of people. And based on this, he can never forgive the Miro Company and its minions who oppress the feeble old man, so it is necessary to help the blacksmith Han, who fell for the company's tricks and lost all his customers, as well as get rid of the minions of this company and break the contract for the sale of the forge. The next game window says that as a descendant of Pagma, when Yanwu concentrates on creating an item, his stats will be increased by 5%, and this is a rare opportunity to give his items special properties. The plus is also that the skill is passive, does not require mana, and is triggered if he tests his endurance. The leader of the bandits realizes that it was just a trap that they all fell for. Die, you chattering bastard, he screams. However, Yanwu is already level 11 and is not as weak as before. He confidently fights back the robber, hitting him with his arrow. You can hurt me more if you want, the collector tells him, but they won't let him die so easily. With these words, the remaining robbers simultaneously rush at the guy. Yanwu doesn't manage to dodge in time, and their strike hits its target. Young man, are you okay? Khan shouts to him in fear. I need time to drink another potion, the boy thinks. Running away again, you little bug? The robber attacks the boy. I'm totally screwed. I'm definitely going to die this time, Yanwu thinks in a panic. Now it's all over. And then the young man's gaze falls on the armor, covered with light fabric. He continues to resist and strikes Prague with another arrow. Bastard, it's useless to resist, the leader shouts at him. However, the young man has no intention of giving up. Such power. The robber is surprised, continuing to repel all his attacks with effort. Yanwu rushes forward with all his might, climbing up the stairs again. The head of the debt collectors is glad that the guy dropped his weapon because he was in a hurry. Keep talking, Yanwu thinks as he continues to climb higher. Khan, do you want to protect the forge? The boy shouts to the blacksmith. Of course, if you help me this time, I will definitely be able to protect this place. The old man answers him. Then I'll borrow them, says the guy, pointing to the armor. With these words, he holds out his hands, intending to put them on himself. But not everyone can use this equipment, and what you can easily put on is on another floor, the old man warns him. There is no need to warn him because he is finished. The debt collectors shout, having almost reached the young man. With a furious cry of die, they rush into the attack, but it looks like they're too late. Have you ever heard the phrase fully armed? Yanwu asks them with a grin. With these words, the young man soars into the air, wearing beautiful armor and with a brightly shining sword blade in his hand. One movement is enough for him to finish off all the bandits at once. A new sign states that Yonu has killed the bandits Prague, and Vale. And now his reputation in Winston has increased by 220 points. He has received 15,200 experience points, and his affinity with Han has reached its maximum. The quest, the Blacksmith's Fury, is completed and he gains a new level. What happened? Are you okay? The old man rushes to him in panic. Seeing the guy, he freezes in surprise. Old man, you know, this is amazing. Why did you hide this armor in a dusty corner? Yanwu asks, puzzled. This armor is called Valhalla. It is a unique item, and the requirements are level 250 and above. Its creator is a certain Albertino. The sword is named Dane's Life. It is also a unique item and requires level 250. You need to have a high level of sword proficiency to use it. Young man, do you really understand the value of these things? And have you even learned the name of the creator? The old man is surprised. The guy sheepishly agrees. The old man loses consciousness and falls. Apparently his blood pressure rose because he was an alcoholic. Since I've completed the task, It's time for me to stop being so curious. So let's move on to the next quest, Yeonwoo says, but doesn't hear a response from the old man. Related quests. The guy understands. He immediately begins to shake the old man, demanding that he wake up and give the next task before fainting. Very soon, the man who hired these bandits will find out that they have disappeared without a trace. Did they run away after getting the money? Mr. Valmont screams in rage. I'm sorry, it was I who recommended them. The man frightenedly justifies himself to him. The merchant should not suffer losses. Pay me for the advance in compensation for the failed order, the customer tells him. I don't have that much money, please just give me another chance. The man asks him in a panic. Bill, if you don't have money, then you just need to earn it. For example, your family members will be sold for a lot of money on the slave market, Valmont answers him. After this, the man orders the guilty servant to be taken away from here. Rabbit, what exactly happened? He asks his strategist. I don't know, sir. We are sure that they reached the forge, but after that they disappeared somewhere, he answers. Damn it! We must take over every forge in the village. Where is that old Khan? Valmont curses. 2 hours ago, an unknown young man carried him to the hospital, Rabbit replies. While thoughts race through his mind about how this arrogant and cruel man drove out his loyal subject, who had served him faithfully for 10 years. Doesn't this young man know anything? Valmont asks. We bought and sold these cheap weapons and made a contract just to get our hands on this forge. Now we finally got him hooked and we can't pass up this chance. Rabbit, you're responsible for everything. Sort this out. The character Yeonwoo Grid has already reached level 21 and has significantly increased his stats and skills. In addition, the chances of a fairly large number of effects have been increased again. The next system window shows what exactly the character Grid is equipped with and what penalties will be applied if the restrictions are not met. The sword, Dainsleaf, is the work of the great Albertino, the first person to receive the title of Master Blacksmith before the era of Pagma. And this blade is a copy, the result of his attempt to reproduce the mythical weapon. But despite the serious discrepancy with the original blade, this man still managed to restore some characteristics, and this sword was recognized as a masterpiece of mankind. The Valhalla armor is also the work of Albertino, and it is said that even Pagma himself was inspired by the man's works. Meanwhile, Yeonwoo returned to the real world. He was happy and contented as never before, and this feeling, like a warm light, penetrated every cell of his being, spreading throughout his entire being, and a smile full of genuine delight blossomed on his face. Today he reached level 25, having killed only a couple of bandits, and now he can continue the quest chain. If he can get that armor and sword as a reward, he will become a real billionaire. Dainsleaf and Valhalla are unique rank items, but they can be sold and their requirements are reasonable. The guy left Old Man Han in the hospital, so according to the quest, he'll be fine. Take care of your health, old man. My success depends on it too, the guy thinks. When Yeonwoo returns to the game, he appears immediately in the hospital. Oh, you've come? Khan cries out joyfully. The doctor tells the boy that he has lowered the old man's blood pressure, so now he can be discharged and will be fine if he stops drinking. It seems I owe you a lot now, says the old man. In difficult times, we must help others. You just need to pay a fee and get a statement, the young man answers him. I'm sorry, but how can I say it? I'm broke right now, Khan tells him guiltily. If you don't want to incur God's punishment, you must pay 1 gold coin, the doctor insistently tells the young man. I am truly grateful to you. Thank you for everything, Khan says to the guy. Thanks to this young man, he found hope, although he almost let down his ancestors by abandoning the work of 7 generations. Yeonwoo replies that it is everyone's duty to help, and now that Han has just been discharged, it wouldn't hurt for him to get some rest. If you had let them take your forge, the alcohol would have ruined your health completely, the guy says. If I hadn't been there when you fainted, you wouldn't have made it to the hospital on your own. Khan replies that, in fact, he would like to do something for his savior. Give me this armor, Yeonwoo insistently asks. Listen to me, I can't give them to you. The old man is nervous, not giving in to any persuasion. These are family heirlooms that were protected at the cost of my ancestors' lives. Please understand me, he says sadly. These are unfortunate objects. Since there was no one to wield their incredible power, they lay here for hundreds of years. But 130 years ago, one man discovered their value, and that man was Pagma. He was delighted with these objects, and when he first took the Dainsleif in his hands, he demonstrated his amazing skill with the sword, becoming one with the combat equipment, and the beauty of his movements was simply incredible, and his swings seemed to pierce the sky itself and cause lightning. My ancestor, Albertino, bowed before Pagma and asked him to take Dainsleif and Valhalla with him. And what? Pagma agreed, Yeonwoo asks. No, he refused, however, before leaving, He said that one day the rightful owner of these items will appear, the old man replies. How did you manage to equip them? I'll make a decision after I hear your answer. Well, you could say I'm like Pagma, the guy replies, while he himself thinks about how the continuation of the quest chain has finally appeared and he can't leave it to other players. No way! Does this mean you are Pagma's successor? The astonished old man asks. Well, yes, that's exactly it. Yunwoo smiles contentedly. Class quest. Pagma's successor has been created. A notification appears. Follow Pagma's ball. Mastery path and collect all the legends associated with it. But if you accept a legendary class quest, you will no longer be able to change your class. So you won't give them to me now? The guy is indignant. I need proof. Please understand me, Khan replies guiltily. If you really are Pagma's successor, then one day you will prove it. But for now, let's drink to our meeting. Hey, no alcohol, that's forbidden until I complete the quest. Yunwoo yells at him, taking the bottle away. They are distracted from their dispute by Rabbit, who came from the Miro company. Did you come here to replace the bandit theme? Yunwoo asks. Let's go down and talk, Khan suggests to him. I have been informed that you are unable to pay a debt of 600 gold pieces, says Rabbit. That is true. However, I cannot give you the forge, so return to where you came from, the old man replies. Actually, I'm here today to give you a chance. And if you hand over the forge to us, we'll guarantee you a high salary and the right to manage it, Rabbit replies. Are you asking me to become your company's errand dog? The old man is indignant. This has nothing to do with my work, it's all about protecting my family forge. I see they weren't lying about your pride, but if we shake your pride, will you change your mind? Rabbit asks. Let's have a competition. Your debt and the right to the forge are at stake. Our blacksmith against you. And if our blacksmith turns out to be better, you give up the forge. Yunwoo thinks that everything seems fair, but he's sure that they'll send a more skilled blacksmith than Han to the competition. Does this guy really think that they're idiots? If this happens, I will change my mind, the old man replies. However, my skills have become rusty from being idle for too long, so I will send my successor. Do you agree? I heard that you don't have any students, the company representative doubts. Here he is, my successor, says the old man, pointing his finger at Yona. Are you completely out of your mind, old man? Don't decide for others. The guy starts to get indignant. A notification appears that a task has been created. Production competition against the Miro company. You need to win the competition. For this, you will be rewarded with 500 reputation points in Winston and an increase in the trust of the city's residents. In case of failure, the reputation will drop to a minimum, and Khan's forge will be transferred to the Miro company. Expecting anything but this, the guy freezes in shock, his mouth hanging open in silent surprise. Do you accept the task? The system asks. Wait a minute, Yunwoo shouts in displeasure. His gaze froze on the line of the reward worth a whole 600 gold. Young man, if you have nothing to do with this, then stay away. You shouldn't follow the lead of this old man. The company representative is trying to put pressure on the guy. I'm in, and I'm going to destroy everyone, the guy replies with a sinister grin on his lips. Very good, then we will inform you about the place and date of the meeting soon. The man answers him. Old man Khan apologizes to the boy, but he simply has to protect his forge. Yunwoo asks him not to worry, because he would gladly sell his soul for 720,000 won. His stats have been increased again, but this is just the beginning. Another tablet says that if the guy can collect all the legends, he will become the true successor of Pagma and follower of his will. And at that very moment, he will be reborn as a legend. It is said that his swordsmanship can pierce the sky, and this may be the key to unlocking his skill that was not recorded in the rare book of the legendary blacksmith. Now, the young man needs to win the competition against the Miro company, but his condition leaves much to be desired. This is an A-class quest, a production competition. If the quest was related to battle, it would be impossible for a level 21 player to complete it. But I am a legendary blacksmith who forged an epic arrow, so it is not a problem for me, Yunwoo thinks smugly. I had some things left over from the store closing so you can practice on them, the old man tells him. Why didn't you ask the Lord for help, the young man asks. The old man replies that the Lord is part of all this and the company bribed him long ago. Isn't Winston part of Count Steam's territory? Why don't you go straight to the Count himself? The guy doesn't understand. I tried many times, but the Lord always stopped me at the exit of the village. The old man answers him upset. Don't worry so much. I will win this competition. You believe in me, right? Yunwoo smiles. Of course I believe. Thank you for your support. If only my son were alive and the same age as you. The old man sighs sadly. Stop crying. Everything will be fine. Just watch how good I am at blacksmithing. Yunwoo laughs. I'm too kind. It's not like me. It's probably because Khan is a goldmine for me, right? The guy thinks. Sometimes when I look at him, I can't help but feel that he somehow reminds me of my grandfather. Sometimes I catch myself thinking that their reserved manner of speech is surprisingly similar. For me, true pleasure comes from working with a person I like, whose company is not a burden, but, on the contrary, inspires and fills me with energy. At such moments when everything is falling into place so harmoniously, and the work is going smoothly, and there is a person next to me who is pleasant to be with, I am filled with a feeling of peace, as if the storm raging inside me suddenly subsides and gives way to calm. It was already 4 o'clock in the morning, and it seemed that the night, like a shaky dream, had imperceptibly come to its logical conclusion, and a new day was already very close. Maybe I should sleep for another half hour, Yeonwoo thinks, since he's been in the game for 2 days already. Khan is very different from the blacksmith from Bayer, and he thinks rather strangely, but his skills are very good. I want to return to the forge and continue my studies, the boy thinks. Good morning, says Yeonwoo, entering his parents' kitchen. His mother tells him that he looks quite tired, to which the boy replies that if he had had eel for breakfast today, he would have had much more energy. Yeonwoo tries not to react to his father's jibes about why a guy without a girlfriend would eat eels, and tries to change the subject. How is Grandpa? He asks. What a reaction. His parents are surprised. Yeonwoo replies that it's nothing special, they just usually talk about him quite rarely, to which the parents tell the guy that his grandfather is fine and they could visit him all together next time. It's a great time to see him, the young man thinks. The next day at the marrow company. Why did you do something so senseless? A furious scream is heard. If Khan can't pay the debt, the blacksmith will be used as collateral, so why are you giving him a chance? Why did you make a deal with Khan? Valmont continues to shout furiously. Rabbit replies that things are going badly and people don't trust their company, so it would be much better to make friends with the people of Winston. Are you trying to teach me? This land belongs to me. I am the master here and you are an idiot. Valmont continues his hysteria. The company's strategist is confident that if this continues, it will be destroyed soon. The people respect Khan, and if we defeat him fairly, they will trust us again, he replies. We need to create the impression that we are giving him and his skills another chance, and in this way, we can improve the company's image and get new regular customers. That would be nice, Valmont thinks about his subordinate's words. What about our opponent? Will he be able to win? The man continues to doubt. Rabbit replies that, according to the information received, he is an ordinary young man with no reputation, and their company already has a person who wins competitions. Great, then let's destroy them, Valmont decides. Even against a man without a name, we will send the best. But we still can't relax, Rabbit is sure. At this time, there is also an active discussion of the upcoming battle in the forge. Really? This young man defeated Vale's gang? An old man is surprised. He looks like a nondescript greenhorn, he continues, surprised. Don't underestimate him. He's an amazing guy. Khan laughs in response. Yeonwoo gets angry and asks them to keep quiet. But then other people appeared, having seen the announcements posted all over the city. One of the townspeople brings a leaflet with an announcement stating that the Miro Company and the blacksmith Khan will compete for the rights to the forge. And if Mr. Khan wins, the company will forgive him all his debts and help him keep the forge, but otherwise the forge will be transferred to the company, and Mr. Khan will have the opportunity to remain its manager. Now the townspeople think that the Miro Company is much better than they thought before. By holding this competition, they pay tribute to Mr. Han and seem to be genuinely trying to get along with the people who inhabit this city. Yeonwoo thinks that even though these people sent the bandits, they might actually be a good company, and yet he feels like something is wrong here. Old Man Khan tears the announcement in half with wild fury. This company has seized our territory and is dictating its terms. Have you really decided to forget everything just because they sent a piece of paper about some kind of reconciliation? He screams in rage. The townspeople understand that this is a scam again and not the first time if you think about it. Yeonwoo is upset that he was almost deceived too. Excuse me, someone's voice suddenly intervenes. From what I heard, Marrow bought the residents' land. You weren't aware of Winston's development? Also, did they force you to sell them your land? Yeonwoo looks at the unfamiliar guy in surprise. He notices a green mark above his head, which means this guy is a player. After selling the territory, you were going to leave the village, but you decided to stay because you learned about the plans for improvement. This whole situation is caused by your personal interest and not the fault of the Miro Company, the stranger continues. What kind of nonsense is this? Did the company send you? Residents are outraged. I'm not here to fight because trading companies care about profit. And once you understand this fact, you can coexist with this company, the guy says. After all, a company cannot exist without residents. It seems he is right. If we coexist with them, it will be better for us. The residents begin to doubt. Their opinion has changed. Who is this guy? Yeonwoo wonders. Yeonwoo can't lose in this competition. What is your name, annoying guy? Asks Old Khan. I apologize for my rudeness. I was so carried away by my thoughts that I forgot to introduce myself. The stranger answers him. My name is Kura. He smiles shyly. Yeonwoo notices that the atmosphere changed in an instant, so who is he? You're right. Coexisting with a large trading company would indeed be a good idea, says the old man. However, the village of Winston is part of the territory of Count Steim, and there is a law here called the right of the people. The right of the people? Kura is surprised. People living in Count Steim's territory must be the first to be informed of the plan changes. The Count personally drafted this law, says Khan. The discovery of new lands in the north by pioneers has a great impact on nearby towns and villages. To be prepared for changes and to receive information in a timely manner is the right of people, so that they are in an advantageous position, and this is the will of Count Steim. So the problem is that the company directly ignored the Count's order, Kuroi understands. And the Lord must be held accountable for allowing the company to monopolize information about development plans. True, that is precisely the whole conflict, the old man agrees. You have convinced me, now I have to do something about it, says Kuroi. I heard that your appeals to the Count were blocked by the Lord and the company. The evil deeds of the Lord and the Marrow Company must be exposed, and I, Kuroi, will inform the Count of the situation in Winston. Here is our hope, thank you. The city residents rejoice. It's incredible how Kuroi did this. Yeonwoo wonders. He did not receive the task, but forced the townspeople to give it to him. Yeonwoo decides to catch up with this guy and find out what his secret is. Is that you? That statue from the forge? Kura laughs at him. Let's be honest, I'm sure Marrow Company gave you a mission, but why did you change sides? Yeonwoo asks, surprised. Kuroi opens the information window and shows it to the guy. It says that Kuroi betrayed the company for the sake of the city's residents, and now he needs to avoid punishment from the company and report the situation in Winston to Count Steam. The reward for completing the task will be the title Apostle of Justice, maximum reputation with the residents of Winston, and a gift from Count Steim. And he will also receive the skill Unbreakable Justice. What kind of unimaginable rewards are these? Yeonwoo thinks enviously. Tell me, how did you get them to give you a hidden mission? He asks the guy. Did you notice that I made them give it to me? I suppose I might tell you to mark the occasion, Kuroi replies. This method uses the degree of freedom in the game, and the idea is that I don't wait to be offered a task, but try to say words that will make people give it to me. I think this information will appear on various sites soon. Right now, only some of the early players know about it, so don't be upset. What's wrong? Kuroi looks at him in surprise. I'm one of the first players, Yeonwoo reluctantly admits. And you didn't know that everyone uses this method? You're so funny. Let's be friends, laughs Kuroi. Fuck you! Yeonwoo shouts at him in a rage and leaves the game. Kuroi is left alone. He got upset and left, the guy sighs. Well, I should hurry up too. There's no point in wasting time. I'm only level 127, even though I've been playing 18 hours a day since the game came out. The thing is, this guy's class is Orator. His strongest attack is Evil Tongue, and he has a much harder time leveling up than other classes. Very few weapons available, low health, combat power, and skills, and the most fatal weakness is the lack of an escape method. He needs courage to increase his attack and defense stats by 10 points. He can't become a ranker by relying only on his language. Now he needs to get through the castle gates to get to Count Steim. Good afternoon. I want to go out, he says to the guards at the gate. I am a normal traveler, so if it is okay, please let me pass, he says, thinking that these guards are quite strict and he should speak to them more politely. However, the guards continue to stand silently near the gate, not reacting to his words in any way. There was absolutely no reaction from them, which is quite ominous. They will not respond to your words because I have instructed them not to do so, a voice comes from behind. Kuroi turns around and sees Rabbit right in front of him. According to instructions, they were supposed to let you know when you would arrive, Mr. Kuroi, the man tells him. Kuroi is annoyed. Now he will need to use the skill Persuasion, and only if he can do it correctly, he will come out the winner. I came here to plan my strategy to persuade the residents. Isn't this the basis for creating a plan? The guy says as he activates his persuasion skill. I expected more from you, Rabbit tells him. You failed to convince the residents, even though we made them doubt by distributing these leaflets. So could this be a betrayal? Kuroi realizes that for some reason his skill is not working. I've studied your skills, they don't work for me now, and I'm sure you understand why you're under arrest, Rabbit says. The guy understands that he will have to run because he cannot fail this task. However, he doesn't have time to take a single step. The guards stop him and do not allow him to escape. The guy thinks that he only has a knife with him and it's not a very good weapon, but he has no choice. However, with the next blow, one of the guards knocks the knife right out of his hand and he falls to the ground. As he thought, he won't be able to win with his strength and all he can do is run. Kuroi tries to leave the game, but for some reason he can't do it. Your resistance is useless. Don't you know we can neutralize your logout spell? Rabbit asks him mockingly. You will rise again if we kill you, so we will put you in prison. Take him to the castle dungeon, the man commands the guards. Now the task for the sake of the people of Winston has been changed to waiting. The system notifies him that he has been captured by Rabbit and will be imprisoned in the castle dungeon with no hope of escape. However, if he is patient, the Apostle of Justice, that the guy failed to become, will appear and save him, provided that he does not exit the game for 50 hours of real time. Kuroi freezes in indecision. He's not sure it's possible to stay in the game for a full 50 hours. He had already played for 20 hours straight once. But if he exceeded that time, the system would forcibly disconnect him and he would not be able to log in for another 6 hours as a penalty. Being locked in for 8 days and 8 hours of game time is a very dangerous task indeed. But he is a lonely guy without a job, and no one is around to stop him. If you put the game capsule into sleep mode, it will be able to hold out quite well. The guy can't miss the chance to complete an S-class mission. The task begins. As a reward for completing this task, he will receive the second class Comrade of the Apostle of Justice. He will have a new characteristic, Courage, and also being next to the Apostle of Justice, all his characteristics will be increased by 20%, and he will also receive such skills as Unbreakable Justice and Sacrifice in the Name of Justice. The game capsule goes into sleep mode. From now on, the young man's brainwaves will be monitored to forcibly pull him out of the game if danger is detected. If his health is at risk, a doctor will be sent to him. From this moment on, it will be impossible to disconnect the young man's capsule from the power supply. If external influence is detected, a special employee will be sent to his address. This will be done to ensure the protection of the capsule. I beg you. If you help me finish this task, I will be faithful to you until the end of the game, thinks Kuroi. I'm waiting for you, Apostle of Justice. Kuroi's current level is 127, and this guy belongs to